Doing tonight? It's the weekend, so I hope everyone's good out there. We're gonna be doing something a little bit different. We're not really doing a build tonight, or a tune like we normally do. Tonight is gonna be an overview. We got ourselves a Voron Switchwire here. It's obviously already built, so we're not going to be rebuilding it, because honestly, it's such a simple build that it would take me longer to take it apart. But anyways, we're going to be going over this printer, answering any questions. I'll do a demo print on it, go a little bit into detail about it, any questions or designs or anything anyone wants to know. But yeah, so first off, how's everyone doing tonight? Oh, and I might switch the motor up, or extruder, because right now we got dual jet packs, because when I built this, the M4 wasn't a thing yet. So let me see here. Ooh, I am not getting chat. Why am I not getting chat? Let me reload this. And if the stream starts stuttering or anything, let me know. Okay, there we go. I had to reload. For some reason, chat wasn't showing up. Converting. Okay, so let me check up on chat here. How was work yesterday? I'm back at work. Yay. That should tell you enough. Switchwire, the underrated Voron. It's not underrated. They're all awesome. Standing drywall. Ooh, that sucks. Painfully sober. Yeah. I don't think, considering I can't even swear on stream, I don't think the Google algorithm would appreciate it if I was drinking on stream other than water. Shop LTT store. Okay. So, tonight, we're not going to be building anything, as I said. We're really not going to be doing tuning. But we are going to be printing and demoing. So, the printer tonight is the Switchwire. So unlike every other Voron printer, this is one of those ones where the bed kind of moves in a Y-axis of some sort, which is kind of foreign considering we're used to our CoreXZ or CoreXY motion. This is CoreXZ. For those that don't know what CoreXZ is you take a CoreXY gantry essentially and you flip it vertical. So, for demonstration purposes, and because it's easier to manage, I have my B0, right? So this is a CoreXY printer with a moving bed, okay? So, to make a CoreXZ printer, you take your gantry that is flat on the Z plane, and you do that, okay? Now you have a CoreXZ printer, okay? Now, this guy is so small and light, it's not an issue. But on something this big, and you would see this if you took any relatively decent size CoreXY printer and flipped it on its back for maintenance purposes or whatever, your gantry would drop, okay? I'm not going to flip these guys over because they weigh like 40 pounds plus. But if you flip them over, your gantry is going to drop. This thing is not plugged in right now, okay? No magic wires, nothing underneath other than electronics, no battery. So there is no power to this. the gantry is not dropping. And it's not like, oh, this is the friction point. It's the gantry does not drop. Magic. So I'll go into detail a little bit more there about how it works. But what this allows you to do is your Z is now as quick as these XY axis on a standard CoreXY printer. So theoretically, we can be pushing over 300 millimeters a second of Z travel. Now, granted, you're really not going to be running 300 millimeters of Z that often. But where that comes into play is Z hopping. So this allows you to run stupid fast Z hopping. Another advantage to it, and I never realized it till I had another printer that had lead screws doing bed mesh leveling. If you've ever done bed mesh leveling with a printer with lead screws, or even really any, you get that constant or some other noise. You can hear the motor constantly like going up and down and up and down. It's like almost like a grinding, whirring noise, depending on your motor, your drivers, whatever. With this, with bed mesh running, there are no noises because it's the same as if you are printing a standard part on a CoreXY that wasn't perfectly straight, because the motors, they work together for your X motion and your Z motion. So for your Z motion, it would just move. So because both motors are constantly running, you're not going to generate any extra noise from running a bed mesh. So bed mesh doesn't really impact a CoreXZ printer much, if at all. So let me catch up on chat here. Yeah, it keeps if the chat gets all stuttery, let me know. It's my internet's kind of funky today. I'm waiting on the guy to show up to put in the fiber. Hello from Sweden. Hello from Canada. A moment of silence for Mavericks printer. Yes, poor Mavericks printer. It wasn't a Voron, luckily. For those that don't know, Maverick, he's a member of the Voron Discord. His non-Voron printer, one of them, decided to go to the Great Toaster in the Sky and pull an A-net. Shit happens. Be safe out there. But, yep. Luckily, no damage other than a melted hot end assembly. So, be safe. Still looking into what happened there. Okay. Are you part of Voron project? Yes, ish. I'm dev in terms of testing monkey and admin on the Voron Discord. Can we have CoreXYZ? Some people refer to the V2 style as CoreXYZ. It's not CoreXYZ. It's still CoreXY with a flying gantry Z. It'd be the same as if it's still just generic CoreXY. I've seen a diagram of CoreXYZ or URXZ or something like that. That just looks way overcomplicated, and I don't think you're going to be solving much going that way. Software Cura. Yes, we're going to be using Cura tonight because I don't have any profiles on this computer for Switchwire, so we're going to have to make a new profile because right now I think all we have is a profile for Bonsai. So we're going to have to create a profile. So starting off Switchwire, let's give a quick overview of it. Now, it's a bed flapper, bed flinger, i3. It's a Mendel style, whatever you call it, a Cartesian, even though that's not a right term. The bed moves in the Y, your gantry, your X gantry moves in the Z, your tool head moves in the X, okay? First thing you notice, no lead screws. There are no lead screws at all. So one, you never have to worry about lead screw wobble. I don't know where my lead screw went. There it is. My demo lead screw. So these guys, they have a tendency to wobble, especially if you buy cheap ones, especially if you use couplers, especially if you use one of them. So we have no lead screw wobble to worry about at all because it's belted. We also have linear rails. These are all MGN 12 rails, okay? Not MGN 9 like the other, like the V2 or the V1, not MGN 7 like the V0. This is MGN 12. The tool head runs on a single MGN 12, not dual like the V2s. Turns out one MGN 12 is perfectly stiff enough, even with cheap Chinese CNA rails, that the tool head is plenty stiff with one rail. So it's 4 MGN 12s. The bed only runs on one rail, and that is stiff enough to support the bed. Like you're going to get more flex out of the carriage than you will out of the mount. So these have been tested multiple times. There's multiples of these out there people have built, and one single Y carriage is enough. Now the bed is, unlike every other Voron, this is a DC bed. This is running 24 volts. It is a DC bed. It's the Mark 52 bed. This one here is a, I think, yeah, Triangle. I have a Triangle Labs one. LDO, and I'd like to give a shout out to LDO. They have a lot of good parts for this printer. I don't have any of them on this printer because I live in Canada and I can't really get LDO up here, at least not yet. We finally have a reseller of LDO up here in Canada, but they're out of stock of everything. So, yeah. So, commonly, most people are running the Mark 52 LDO bed. It's the same as the Prusa. Or people are reusing beds, because the beauty of the Switchwire, yes, you can scratch build it. And if you go to the Voron Design website, let me pull it up here. So if you go to the Voron Design website, this is a Switchwire. You can get the whole bill of materials for scratch building one of these. But the kind of the beauty of the Switchwire, it's really meant, and what I think, and a few others have said, is kind of to breathe life into that old Prusa Mark II you have kicking around, or an Ender 3, or any other generic Mendel i3 bed flapper printer you have sitting around. Because, you know, the frame doesn't exactly have to be this large. As long as you have 30-30 of some sort and some 20-20, you can pretty much adapt the design to use almost any frame, any bed. The electronics you can move around. You just need 4 motors. So this printer, people have built them out of Ender 3s already. I don't know if the full design of that is out there, but I have seen it done. And if you can do it out of an Ender 3, you can do it out of any of the other Ender 3 style printers, CR10, etc., etc. So it's a good platform to upgrade an old printer that you have. You know, you have an old Prusa Mark II kicking around with the lead screw or threaded rod frame. Go buy yourself some extrusion, reuse the bed, reuse the electronics, reuse your V6, reuse, you know, power supply, and take a massive chunk off of building one of these. If you want to build one of these from scratch, again, there are no parts kits. There are some vendors that carry some of the parts and bundled up, but nothing's official. This is a self-sourced printer, so you're kind of, there's no warranty implied if you buy it from any of the anyone who has a kit that is selling it is not official. I'm not saying they're bad. I'm just saying nothing is actually technically official because Voron's not a company. To build one cost-wise, you can build one of these from scratch cheaper than you can buy a Prusa in most places. This is looking a little while ago. I think with some vendors like LDO putting more out there towards Switchwire in terms of components, the prices actually might be a little bit cheaper than that. But you should be able to build one of these cheaper than a Prusa Mark III, the current Gen 1. Hi from France. I just ordered a frame kit for Switchwire from Fermio Labs a few hours ago. Awesome. Cool to see a live stream of this printer tonight. Awesome. Have fun with the build. Fermio Labs, good shit. Let's see here. Yep, there are a couple different Ender conversions in the work. One thing, the frame on this is bigger than most i3s. Now, when you look at this, and let me just flip it forward a bit here. Bed's gonna move every time I flip this thing. It looks absolutely massive compared to most i3s. I'm gonna refer to it as an i3. You know, it's technically like a Mendel design in terms of bed flap or whatever. Printer terminology is horrible. So anyways, it looks massive. The reason this is massive, really your frame doesn't have to go beyond here and beyond the motor in the back. So we actually have the frame extended 3 inches more in the front and almost 2 inches in the back, longer than it really needs to be footprint wise. The reason for that is compared to most i3 style printers, Yeah, I got one. The reason I wanted to build the bonsai so I would have a demonstration printer. Compared to most i3 style printers, where when the bed travels, it'll move. Well, not this one. It'll move past a bound usually. Usually on like Prusa's, for example, the bed moves in front of the frame. So at full, or what is it, Y0, your bed's actually hanging off the front of the printer. With this guy, the bed never leaves the bounds of the printer. So the advantage of having it where everything is contained within the frame, you can enclose this by literally slapping panels onto it. And there's STLs for printing some of the components for joining the panels and the front door. But literally everything slaps onto the side of this. Now, this one I obviously can't because this is the Bowden setup one. It uses the afterburner tool head, which you can find in the V2 and the V1. But the afterburner tool head is either direct drive or Bowden. This one's not set up for direct feed, it's set up for Bowden. But if you went with direct feed, you wouldn't have anything mounted on these. You wouldn't have anything mounted up top here. And you can literally just slap panels on the 3 sides and then join a panel on the back and join a panel on the front. And the whole printer is fully enclosed. I think there's pictures here on the gallery once it loads. So yeah, so you can see there, and those are the doors that are open. I think we only have the one picture, which is kind of not great. But yeah, so the whole printer, like all Vorons, can be enclosed within the envelope of the frame. Okay. What extruders are you running? These are Jetpacks. Yeah, they're not M4s. I have an M4 here. Okay, so what have I touched on? Okay, so the hot end, it's a standard afterburner, like in the V2, V1, E3D V6 or its derivatives, Slice, Mosquito, high flow, standard flow, and the Dragon, Fadus, Triangle Labs, high flow, low flow, or standard flow. Those are the 3 kind of supported hot ends. You can go direct feed, you can go Bowden. We do have a beta Y splitter, which is what I have set up in here, because I built this printer to be my dual extrusion, open air PLA, mostly test bed printer, because my V2s are set up fully enclosed for ABS. They chew on that all day. I kind of wanted something that would be a more traditional printer. The noise canceling. You know what? I don't have any printers running right now, so let me turn off the noise canceling. I know I don't like running it myself, but last week we had really annoying fans. There we go. Okay, noise canceling canceled. You made me lose my train of thought. So anyways, I built this to be my dual extrusion test bed for just playing around with stuff. The advantage of a traditional Cartesian style like this, it's easier to play around with certain things like adding dual extrusion. I don't need to worry about feeding a tool head that's moving around in the X, Y, and Z like on my V2s. So this one, you have more options when it comes to non-spec playing around with, kind of like the V1. It's just easier to add and play around with stuff without having to do any drastic changes. Plus, I have 2 fully enclosed V2s. I wanted something, you know, I wanted a more traditional printer because I don't own it. This is the first bed flinger that I owned, so, and I built it. Controller on these, spec is the SKR Mini 1. Or V2. However, it's a rep. You can put anything in here. If you have an old INZ board, you can use an INZ board. I have an SKR 1.3 in here. The reason I have the 1.3 is because I need to control 5 motors for dual extrusion. If you're only running 1 extruder motor, you can get away with an SKR Mini E3 V2. Yep, Kennedy. I'm still running the dual jetpacks simply because I haven't got around to printing two. I only have one M4 right now. I need to print another one. Cheap lac table from IKEA and printed parts. Oh yes, okay. So we're gonna touch back a bit on Switchwire. For those that were watching the stream on Thursday, I ended it before the part finished printing. However, let me see here. Focus. There's our part. Now, obviously, it was stuck a little too well to the bed, but this was printed on my crummy little self-built i3 out of spare parts. So this part printed off actually perfectly fine. We have no issues with fitment. It mates perfectly with the other half that I have printed on like a V2. So the part's good. It's nice and strong. The surface finish is pretty damn good, I would say. And our enclosure that cost me a grand total of spare cardboard and tape and scrap plexiglass and coroplast. For those that follow my Twitter at 3DPNero, join my Twitter, reached 40.8 degrees Celsius by the time this finished in 2 hours. So in 2 hours, a 60 watt 12 volt bed that's 120 by 120 managed to heat this cardboard box enclosure that's 16 inches cubed to 40.8 Celsius, which is, that's what my tall boy gets up about here from ambient. Down near the bed it sits around 50, but we had zero warping issues, and the parts printed pretty damn good, other than just being slow, and you can only do one at a time. Oh, let me catch up here. Yeah, see, I'm not a fan of the lax enclosure because, one, it's all cardboard. Like, it's IKEA cardboard furniture. You're enclosing the electronics. You're enclosing the whole printer, and it's much bigger than you really need. You don't want the enclosure any bigger than you need because the bigger the volume, the harder it is to keep it at temperature, and the harder it is to get it up to the temperature. Plus, you know, a Prusa Mark III is built at a PETG. Once I wouldn't push PETG past 50, and I know a few people on the Voron Discord that have printed Voron parts or just have printed ABS on their Prusas in enclosed situations. And if you get the enclosure too hot just from being too good of an enclosure, parts will fail in PETG. So I know a lot of people that have reprinted their Prusas in ABS for that reason. What filament for the part? All the black parts on here, and actually even the gray on this one, is eSun ABS Plus because Canada and I can't get KVP. But yes, it's a great entry-level ABS. That's what we were using to print this guy on the little crappy i3 that I pulled out earlier. How does the build complexity time compare to a V0? We don't have a manual out. However, we do have the CAD. Which I actually can't. Yeah, I don't have. I need to put Fusion on this computer. Unfortunately, I forgot to put Fusion on this computer. The CAD is literally all you really need to build one of these, because, for example, let's take a look here. So this is our idler, right? Our XZ idler. It is 2 printed parts and a bearing stack. Okay. Our XZ idler, okay, is 2 printed parts and 2 bearing stacks. The connector for, come on, I really need to get a better camera for this. It's hard to see. The connector for, screw it. The connector for attaching the gantry to your rails is 1 printed part for each side, and then this side has an extra printed part for your key back. So literally the most complex part of the build is the afterburner, which you can just reference one of the existing V2 or V1 manuals for how to put together the afterburner. The only difference is actually reference the V1 manual because this one has a limit switch built into the tool head. The V2 doesn't. So it's actually a super simple build. The Y-axis is 2 printed parts up front for the idler and 2 printed parts for the motor mount, and it's belted. Like it's honestly a really simple build. The only complex part is you have to drill holes in the bed carriage. So the carriage, not the bed, not the PCB bed, but the carriage itself. You can use almost any carriage, but you need to be able to drill holes in it to mount it to the MGM12 rail. And it's literally 4 holes that you need to drill, and they can be clearance holes. 4 holes to drill it to attach it to the rail, and then 2 more holes to attach it to the belt mount. And the belts run inside the rails, or inside the extrusion, the 2020. What was difficult about the afterburner? It's not difficult. I'm just saying that is the most complex part. So if you can put together the afterburner just fine, you could put together the rest of the printer. For extruders, again, this one has dual Bowden. You can run single Bowden. There is the clockwork, so you can run a direct feed tool head. I know a lot of people are running direct feed just fine. There's no... Honestly, with Bowden, I'm having... Now that I play with Clipper, I'm having less and less issues with Bowden, and I probably will even... I don't know if I'll keep this guy fully set up for dual extrusion, but I'm just going to keep this guy Bowden in case I ever want to test an extruder, because I want to have something Bowden so I can test Bowden extruders. But with how good, Pressure Advance and all the other fancy Clipper things are, I'm probably just going to keep it Bowden. So for the bed, let's see here. Oh, did I lose this camera? I might have lost that camera. Come on. Properties. There we go. Hey, we're back. So for the bed, it is a DC bed. You do have to solder on, if you're building it fresh, you do have to solder on the wires because they have to attach at the bottom. But it does run in a drag chain. And it, let me see here if I can get the angle right. The drag chain moves with the bed in that way. So all the wires, like all the other Vorons, run in drag chains. So we have no umbilicals that you got to worry about. Save. There we go. What else? I think the default design has the your filament mount up top. However, I don't like putting that on top of the printer. You know, this thing is an absolute tank. I have it mounted on the side on mine. Mark 3S enclosure gets over 30 Celsius. A couple print head plastic parts also melted after 100 or so hours of printing ABS. Yep. I don't like how Prusa switched to PETG. I understand why they printed or switched to PETG, but ABS is a much better material for structural components in my opinion. And if you look outside of 3D printing, pretty much the only thing that uses PET is plastic water bottles for the most part. ABS is a industry standard for a reason. So if you have the ability to print ABS, you should be printing your printer parts out of ABS. Okay. So I think that's enough of that. Oh yeah. So it is CoreXZ. So for belt tensioning, racking is a huge issue with CoreXY printers, and this is a CoreXZ printer, which is pretty much the same thing, only vertical. So when you go to build your printer, obviously you're gonna put everything together and build it mechanically as de-racked as possible. What that means is the spacing between your gantry and the bed is equal on both parts, okay? So you don't want your gantry coming down and your gantry being like that compared to your bed that's flat. You want to be in parallel, not perpendicular, okay? So once you belt everything up, it's nice to have a way of adjusting the belt tension so that you can manually tweak your racking if you run into an issue. And I have a video on my channel going through on how to de-rack a CoreXY printer. Now for this, the actual belt pathing is very similar to a V1.5 or earlier, even the V1.0. So we have the two motors, and they just go up, feed, across, and down in standard CoreXY, okay? We don't have like front idlers, and the motors are in the belt path. So for this, the motors mount to the side of the frame down here, and they latch into the extrusion. And what you can do is you can actually loosen the motor mounts, and then there's a screw that goes through and pushes against something, and it hooks onto the extrusion. So by tightening and loosening that screw, you can move the motor position slightly on the Z. You have enough play there, or enough freedom to move it, to pretty much cancel out any racking you have, and then you just tighten it back down. So you do have belt tensioning built in. And then for the big trick, why the gantry doesn't drop. It's called a keyback, okay? And what it is, for those that have ever worked security or any other type of thing where you have a lot of keys, what the keyback is it's going to keep auto-focusing, I'm sorry. It's down here, and it's basically a keychain retainer. And as you move the gantry up and down, it puts out, I think this one is, 13 ounce, and there's a 13 ounce one and a 20 ounce one. This is 13 ounce. You can get the 20 ounce one. I'd recommend the 20 if you're running a direct feed tool head, just because of the extra weight. But essentially, it acts like a counterbalance. And you only need it on the one side. And without this on, the gantry would drop, okay? My setup here looks different than what you would see on the standard one if you were to build it now, because this is a prototype one. And I cut my, because originally, the original design, you had to cut off the little nubbin at the end of the string. We redesigned it so it just hooks in. So this one, I'm using the beta one, so it will look, but its function's the same. So it's enough to basically, now by itself, it's not enough to hold the motor up. However, once you combine it with the resistance of the motors itself and the friction buildup with the belting and the bearings and everything and it canceling each other out, it basically makes it net zero. Now, as far as I'm aware, this is one of the only printers out there. I've never seen it in any commercial printer. I've kind of seen designs like this in some of the DIY printers, where essentially you have a counterbalance to your Z movement. The 20 ounce cord is a little too short. Okay, if the 20 ounce is short, then yeah, go with the 13 ounce. This is 13, and like, okay, I added the weight of a Mobius 4 or an M4 on it, and okay, so it's almost enough. But this weighs more than just the motor. Going direct feed would be lighter than this. This motor's twice the size. So anyways, it's a counterweight. Now, for those that have ever worked in CNC, counterweights are super common in CNC, because think about it. You want your motor moving as efficiently as possible. So if your gantry weighs, I've never actually weighed the gantry on here, but say your gantry weighed 30 ounces, okay? Whenever you move up in the Z, you have to move the mass plus the effect of gravity on it. It would be much easier if you could just remove the mass of the gantry, and then the motor only had to deal with movement and not fighting more mass, essentially, right? It would be perfect if your gantry weighed nothing, okay? Because if your gantry weighed nothing, you wouldn't have to worry about different acceleration rates. Now, in a 3D printer where you're not printing along the Z-axis, you're only doing movement on the Z-axis, it's not a huge issue. However, if you were to start to get into the non-planar printing, where your Z is now moving, where you're printing, you're printing over a curved surface, this would be optimal for that, because it's also CoreXY, so you're not constantly have to dealing with lead screws shuffling up and down. So essentially, it's a counterweight. Now, this is an off-the-shelf item, luckily, too. And it's available on Amazon. I remember looking for an alternative to this, because when Mr. Russian Cat Food first decided to use it, we're like, oh, how do we deal with it worldwide? Well, the thing is, you can get these worldwide. They're available on Amazon Canada, Amazon US, and Amazon Europe. It's all it is a keychain. Let me find the one I have. So the price has gone up. I paid like $13 for mine. So the prices has gone up a little bit, but I paid $13 for mine, or even less probably. But that's all it is. And they're rated to like 1 million retractions, like 1 million ins and outs. I don't think nobody's killed any of these yet. And what you can do is what I did when I first got mine. I opened it up. Be very careful. It's a wound up spring. You can open it up, put a few drops of oil on it, just to help with the noise. And then it, it's good. You don't hear the noise when it's printing. So that is that. Now, for bed leveling, unlike the V1 and the V2, we only have the inductive probe. There is no separate micro switch for the nozzle offset. So you have to run this like a traditional printer with just a standard probe. It is the PL08 style probe, PL05 actually, because this is a flex plate. So it's spring steel. So I have a PL05 in there. You can use the higher quality alternatives that exist out there if you want. Those work just fine. But that's basically it. It's for the X and the Y axis. For the Y axis, you could do sensorless if you really wanted to. But default is just a standard KW10 style micro switch. I have Omrons in here because I just had them. So I think that's enough on the mechanical aspect. Before I flip it over to look at the electronics, does anyone have any questions or anything else they want me to go look into? How do you remove the loop from the key back? I cut it off. That's why I can't put it back on. Well, I could, it's just I didn't feel like doing it. I still have it somewhere. If I had to go to the stock design, I could. I just too lazy. This works. Oh my god, 100 people. Okay, I have 100 people watching the stream. Hello everyone, welcome to the Switchwire stream. I'll do my little shill speech here. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, please subscribe. If you like what you see, hit like. There's 100 of you here. I should see 100 likes. Yeah, algorithm stuff. I have a Twitter at 3DP Nero, and that's it. Welcome to my 3D printing channel. We talk printers. Is it possible to upgrade the Y rail to HDR 15? I'm not sure what that is, but honestly, you probably could, no problem. If you look at the CAD, it's really easy to modify it if you had to thicken it up for... all you would really need to change, I believe, is just with the rail being taller. You would just have to change the design of where the rail attaches to the carriage slightly to compensate for the offset. But you probably could run a thicker rail on here, no problem, as long as your the bed carriage itself has enough material in the middle to drill your 4 holes. So it depends on your spacing. It would depend on the spacing of the carriage itself, but as long as you have enough meat on the carriage to drill 4 holes to attach the carriage to the bed carriage, you'd be fine. There we go. Who dislikes? Aw, somebody disliked. What the heck? Is there an Ender 3 conversion kit? Well, there are no kits, okay? All these printers, all Vorons are self-built. There are a few vendors that offer kits. They're not officially endorsed by Voron Design, but that's because Voron Design isn't a company. It's just a bunch of guys in their garden sheds building printers, rocket ships out of garden tools, essentially. So all the kits are basically other companies just putting them out there. I won't say any are good. I won't say any are bad. People like some of them. People don't like some of them. But if you want a kit, you have to... If you buy a bad kit, it's not our fault because we don't officially endorse anything. That's how we kind of avoid the liability. But there are people converting Ender 3s into these. I think some of the designs are out there. It's really not hard to do. If you're reusing the existing frame, you do have to tweak some of the parts, I believe. But if you're using a new frame and you're just reusing components such as the bed, the extrusions, the rails, or correction, you would have to buy rails. But if you're just reusing components and buying what you don't have, you can easily swap it over. So, okay. So, let's see here. I think I'm going to flip it over. Now, electronics. It's 24 volt stock. Now, that's not saying you can't use 12 volt if you're using like an old Ender 3 as your base and you have a 12 volt bed and a 12 volt power supply and you want to just reuse everything. You're free to do it. It's a rep wrap. You can do what you want. I recommend, though, 12 volt if you can, simply for the shorter heat up time of the bed. More efficient electronics. For those that don't know, you run less current with 12 volt than you do with 24. So what that means is your wire gauge doesn't have to be as thick. There's more freedom. It's just safer at 24 volts. And stuff heats up quicker and actually uses less power because it's more efficient. So, the bottom. It's very exciting. Screen here, I'm running a standard Physec Mini 12864. Pretty much any screen that works with Clipper you can use if you want. I have two 60mm fans here, and they just blow air through here just to kind of keep everything cold. Not really super needed. But you should have at least one fan on your controller board because we have 2209s, 5 of them, SKR 1.3. I have a Raspberry Pi 3B Plus for a Clipper, and that's plugged into the SKR. I have a 12 volt buck converter here just for the fans because those are, I think Fractal makes them. They're computer fans, but they're quiet. A little 5 volt buck or 5 volt power supply for the Raspberry Pi. The main power supply is a Meanwell LRS 350-24. This is the loudest part on the printer when it kicks on, is this fan, really. Plug, and there's your Y motor. And that's it underneath the hood. There's really not much to it. You can have more if you wanted to, if there's certain, LED strips and all kinds of fun stuff. It sits on the rubber air compressor feet. That's spec with all Vorons. Although you can print off feet at a TPU. People have done that. But yeah. Oh yeah. TMC 2209 stuff. But that's another thing with 24 volts. 24 volts, your motors will actually run quieter and cooler. Because they're just more efficient. So yeah, that's the bottom of it. Again, it's a DIY rep wrap, right? So... Oh, how do you adjust the Y belt tension? Very easily. So we can adjust the tension on the XZ belts by simply moving the motors. But on the Y, let's see here. What you do is there is one screw that attaches the... Now it sits in a slot, so it can't really move anywhere. But the motor attaches to the extrusion here. What you do is you tighten it as best as you can underneath with where it attaches, because there is a point where you can, once you feed the belts through, you can kind of pull them tight before you tighten them together to the bed carriage. But if even then you can't get it perfectly tight, you loosen this screw, you put a screwdriver in there, and you just kind of move the motor mount backwards until you get the tension you want, and then you tighten the screw. So you just shift the motor back to tighten the tension on the Y belt. That's all it is. And you do have a bit of play there as well. So you mount your rail and use your rail with a screwdriver, and you can literally just pry it back. And that's all you have to do to adjust the Y tension. It's really easy. It's simple. So I think I was going to put the Mobius on it. We're already 45 minutes in. I still have to set up a slicer profile, but I only have one. I don't think I'm going to do any dual extrusion because I don't have a profile for it, and I haven't been able to get dual extrusion working good with Cura with the Y splitter. I've only done it with Prusa Slicer, and I don't have Prusa Slicer installed, and I don't have the profile in here. So we're just going to do a single extrusion print just to kind of show it off and get it going. So we got to feed it some power. Dog hair everywhere. I need to put a knob on here. I bought 2 of these screens. One of them's in Tallboy, but I lost one of the knobs, so I don't have a knob. So this screen is really bright. I got to print a knob off. Maybe that's what I'll do. So it's Clipper. I'm a big Clipper fan. This guy is running mainsail, I believe. Yes. Okay, so this guy's running mainsail. So for those that are unfamiliar with Clipper, you pretty much have 3 options when it comes to interfaces. You have Octoprint, which is, you know, the old standard. Everyone uses it. And that was pretty much all you could use for the longest time. Now there's 2 other interfaces. There's Fluid, which if you watch last week's stream, the little bonsai that I built, that runs Fluid. And then we have mainsail. Essentially, the difference between Fluid and mainsail is personal preference. It's just the way the interface looks. So this is mainsail. I don't have a webcam plugged in, so you don't see a webcam. But essentially, this is mainsail. They both function exactly the same. They have the same controls and everything. You can still, you know, edit your configuration in mainsail the same as you can Fluid. At this point, it's just personal preference, which of the 2 you like. So, let's home it, and you guys can see it move. So, and I turned off the noise cancellation so you can hear it. And that's it. So, for print volume, you technically have, I think it's 250 cubed is the full envelope that you can get out of here. However, it doesn't have a true 250 print volume. Your drag chain right here can, if you come up too high, will hit your belts. And if it starts hitting your belts, you're probably going to get defects in your print. So I have mine limited to 230 on the Z, which is what it is right now. So I have 230 on the Z. I have 250 on the Y, and I have 240, I believe. Let me check my configuration. It's been a while since I've looked at it. Y. Where is my Y axis? 240. Yeah. So I have 240 on the Y, 250 on the X, and 230 on the Z. The reason for the limit on the Y axis, you actually can print the 250, or the head can move in 250. But on the standard Prusa bed, with the way the wiring mounts to it, there's a little cover plate. You'll hit the cover plate if you go too far back. And the bed itself isn't actually... where's my big fancy ruler? I don't know where my big fancy ruler is. There it is. Yeah, the flex plate on a Prusa is actually, you know, only 23.5 millimeters. Or, yeah, what is it? Or, so 23.5 centimeters. So just a hair under 24 millimeters. So, you know, you can move 250. If you were to buy a 250 millimeter flex plate, you'd be fine. But if you're using the stock flex plate, you only have about 240, 235, 240-ish of on the Y. So, yeah. Mainsail looks like RepRap. So, Joseph, they both use Vue, I think it is. It's like the programming language for designing stuff. However, in terms of like under the hood coding, there is absolutely nothing in common between mainsail and Fluid and Duet web control, essentially. So while they look the same, there's only so many ways you can make like a temperature chart or like this home all buttons. Like it just cosmetically, they kind of may look the same, but under the hood, they're completely different. So the advantage with this, though, is it's super lightweight. You can run these on a Raspberry Pi Zero just fine. By itself, as we found out last week, it only uses like 18% of a Raspberry Pi Zero when it's printing with no webcam. Webcam jumps it up to like 50 to 60. Can we have CoreXZ Voron 3? No. CoreXZ, I've never actually seen like built. And I've seen the picture that everyone shows, and yeah, it's overly complicated. Would you use a Duet 2 Wi-Fi? I'm pretty sure RepRap firmware does support CoreXZ configurations. I know Marlin does. So if you had a Duet 2 and you wanted to run RepRap firmware, you could, no problem, as long as RepRap firmware supports CoreXZ. Or you could just run Clipper on your Duet, which that's what I would recommend. But I wouldn't recommend at this point in time, with how good Clipper is with existing hardware, I wouldn't recommend going out and buying a Duet 2. But if you already have one, you might as well keep using it. It's still good hardware. Like, it's a well-built board. So, we got to print something. What should I print tonight, guys? I need some filament in this guy. I got really crappy orange, and I've got red and white. I got white, red, and really crappy orange for PLA. I need to buy more filament. I am running low. I don't even know where my red went. Where is my red? Did I lose it? How do I lose filament? I just bought it. Oh, there it is. Let's go with red. I haven't used this stuff yet. I don't even know what brand it is. Red. Made in China filament. PLA Pro. Sure, let's roll with it. Oh, Tagley, $20. Thank you, man. Appreciate it. As always, if anyone donates anything to the stream, pretty much everything goes into the stream itself, hardware for the stream. Donation so far is paid for the camera, the computer I'm using this on, which, oh my god, thank you guys for helping me get a new computer, because that old computer is... I tried to reflash Windows on it just to put reinstall Windows, and it's like straight up dead. So, thank you all. So, as always, thank you to anyone who donates to the stream. White or red? Print the knob you need. Let's see here. Come on, Thingiverse. Let's see what we got. Mini 12864. Let's see what comes up with Mini 12864. Reflash. Knob. Because I tried printing a knob off a while ago and it never printed. Yeah, screw it. First we got to actually make a profile. So, do I have 2 instances of Cura running? Okay. So, add a printer. Non-network printer. So, our base profile is we're going to use a Voron. Because it's a Voron. Switchwire. Off topic, I bought some eSun PLA Plus in lime green, and it's much better than it was 2 years ago. That's good. I've been using, I have some eSun ABS Plus, or PLA Plus. I find it's really good. I just find it's really stringy. Like some PLAs, I have no stringing issues at all. And most plastics, I have no stringing issues. But PLA Plus from eSun, I have stringing issues. So, 250, 240, and 230. Rectangular, RepRap. Print start, print end. I actually have my end script saved. Let me see here. There we go. So start, bed mesh calibrate, end is that. There we go. Tool head, we got 1.75. Okay, that looks good there. Heated bed, yep. Next. Hey, look, okay. So this is basically a profile for a V2 that we're going to use on the Switchwire. So we're going to go fast. User mod on GitHub from Jared. Can you ping me the link on Discord? Actually, somebody just tagged me on Discord. Let me see what somebody's saying about me. Oh, okay, it's more about Maverick's fire. If you're watching the stream, Maverick, I'll catch back up on you after the stream. Okay, so let's find something to print. Actually, you know what? I want to print something with a lot of retracts. I want to print something with a lot of Z hopping. Because I want to show the advantage of why CoreXZ is awesome in a bed flinger. Because you can do stupid fast Z hops. So, let me find something. Anyone got an idea of a model with a lot of Z hops in it? Like, I could do a benchy, but everyone knows what a benchy is. Start code is messed up. Something in front of G28. Oh, print start. Oop. Delete. There we go. I know I can have a macro in the firmware, but I do it this way. There we go. So we need something to print with a lot of Z hops. That isn't going to take forever. Oh, you know what? Let's do that lattice cube. Let's do this guy. Yeah, let's do this guy. Thing files. And we'll just do the standard one. Yeah, we're going to do the lattice cube. There we go. Okay, so let me just go through the settings. So 0.2 layer height, 0.4 millimeter nozzle. 2 walls, yeah, sure. Top layer is 4, sure. Bottom layer is 4, sure. Might as well printing order, alternate external wall, because I like that setting. Sharpest corner, sure. Infill, sure. 20% grid, whatever. So this ain't ABS, this is PLA. So where's PLA? Generic PLA. Discard changes. There we go. And we're using 40 millimeter nozzle. Is it all V6? Yeah, V6 and Volcano, that's all it is. So that, 2. Sharpest corner, 10%, 200. Yeah, 200's fine. 60 bed. Drop it down to 55 after. I haven't done it. This stuff, I have no idea how it prints. So we are winging it on this PLA. Print speed, okay. Outer wall 60. Inner wall 90. Travel 300, sure. Top surface speed 40. Yeah, sure, whatever. Let's do 60. Yeah, you know what? 40 is the top layer. Now let's wait 60. There are no top layers on this guy. Retracts, I think I run 4 millimeters is what I remember. Z-hop when retracting. Z-hop height. So Z-hop. You want to run Z-hop. Anytime you're printing something, like a model like this will be the model that you're going to want Z-hop on, because this model is going to have a tendency where the edges are going to curl up. Anytime your edges curl up and you have your nozzle coming back into it to continue printing, if you don't have Z-hop enabled, your nozzle is going to strike any part that curls up. And if it strikes it, it has a chance of either, if it's, you know, it doesn't want to move, you're going to have a layer shift, depending on your printer, if it doesn't have enough oomph to power through it. Or you're going to either damage the part, knock the part over, crack the part, knock it off your bed, essentially, yeah. Z-hop speed. Let's crank the speed up. Z-hop speed. And what else? 80 millimeters a second? Yeah, sure, 80 millimeters a second, Z. Turn off combing. Yeah, I'll turn off combing. Do I have combing? Off. Enable print cooling. Yes, this is a PLA. It wants its cooling. Generate support. Nope. Enable draft shield. Nope. There was one other setting I wanted to think about. Retraction speed. 45, 30, 25. Oh, acceleration. Enable acceleration control. There we go. Okay. So infill acceleration will go 3000. I don't have input shaper tuned on this guy yet. So outer wall, 1800, sure. Inner wall, yeah, we'll go with 2400. We're just eyeballing stuff. 1600, sure. Top surface, cool. Travel, 5000, sure. And travel at 300 millimeters a second, sure. That seems fine. Okay, let me see here. Check chat up. I see Thomas on Sidewinder X1. I don't agree with him fully. I agree that the bed cabling, but oh, let me go up. The speed of taller prints. Yeah, that's unfortunately a downside with it being a bed flinger. Your moving mass changes as the print gets taller and it can wobble and whatnot. So it has, unfortunately, there's really no way to get around that without making your bed either move on the Z or fix it. So unfortunately, we can't really fix that. Now with input shaper, you can kind of maybe fudge it and get away with it, but it's kind of a downside that it's inherent to all bed flappers. In terms of that Sidewinder, I seen the way the bed is set up. If they're all like that, I really don't like that. And the way the electronics are screams of, hey, we just bought these parts. We're going to jam the raw connectors into the board and hot glue it. That printer I don't like. And for the price, one, I don't like bed flingers that large anyways. This is as big of a bed flinger I would build. But yeah. 10 millimeters a second. I thought I turned up Z. Where's the Z hop speed? Oh, Z hop. Oh, there we go. Oh, God. 50. I thought I bumped that up. Then what was I looking at here? Okay. Yeah, there we go. What, 60? 60. Fine, 60. I love how Kira's like, no, you can't have 60 millimeters of Z hop speed. Okay, there we go. Slice. Unable to slice. It won't let me slice with the Z hop speed. Are you serious? What the hell, Kira? Slice. Unable to slice. Are you serious, Kira? 40? Okay, I can do 40. Okay, I can do 40. 40 is as fast as Kira goes. I think that's what I have my other printers at anyways. 4 hours. Okay, we're not going to print for... I'm not going to, unfortunately... The stream's not going to be a 4-hour stream, guys. Preview. But we should be able to print it for a while at least. Save to file. G-code files, upload. Where do I save it to? Documents, right? It's in documents, G-code. Oh, there it is. Okay, so while it's doing that, let's heat our extruder up because we got to get some plastic in here. And let's heat our bed up. I mean, can upload file, G-code files, upload. DJ Soltone, yes, I have looked at Super Slicer. I just haven't had the chance to actually fully dive into it. Why aren't you uploading? Oh, I have to update it, crud. I forgot. When I copied over, when I put Mainsail on here, I haven't used this since I installed Mainsail. I copied over the wrong config. What's the no, it's let me see here. G-code files. Yeah, it's like the code path is wrong or something. Oh, let's see here. Let me try this again. Yeah, I might be running an old vert. No, I'm running 0.9, I believe, on this guy. Yeah, cannot upload file. Settings, config, printer config. Yeah, virtual SD card is enabled. Save. This is nice when you have the guy who like is one of the main guys who works on the thing here. Okay, so we're at 200. Feed amount 20. Extrude. Oh, wrong path. What should it be? Home pie. Oh. There we go. Yeah, restart. Honestly, the only reason I love Cure is because I've been using it for so... I wouldn't say I love Cure, it's just I know what I've been using it for almost 3 years now. I'm very... If it works, it works. Why... Oh. Let's try this again. Upload. Oh, refresh. Ignore me. Upload. For Bowden, which one to take between M4 and Jetpack? I would go M4. The only reason I'm running Jetpacks here is because the M4 wasn't out yet, and it was easier to make the Jetpacks mount the way I wanted versus dual M3s. So there we go. Oh, let's get our bed back up to 60. And it's got, you know, it's a Prusa bed. Well, it's a Mark 52, so it's got a little blinky LED there. So it should be coming across. Like, I'll be quiet here so you can hear the ambient noise of this thing just sitting here. All the fans are running but the afterburner. Once the afterburner, the 4020 up here kicks on, you're going to hear it. Unfortunately, that thing's loud. I'll turn noise canceling back on at that point. What Pi are you using for Switchwire? This guy has a Pi 3B Plus. No, it has a Pi 3, not a 3B Plus. It's just a regular 3, I believe. Okay, bed's hot enough, I think. Console, G-code files, print. That's the thing. Every slicer has some issues. I will say, like, I have played with Prusa Slicer a bit with this guy, getting it set up for dual extrusion, and it's been pretty good. So I haven't had any issues there. But like, I haven't been let down by Cura. Now, granted, I don't upgrade versions of Cura often. Like, my main profile on my main desktop that I use for Cura, or for printing, is I think 4.5, I believe. This one is, I think this is 4.7 right now. So that is that. Got that's primed. Oh, and for this guy, just so you know, I am running it's a Triangle Labs / legit E3D V6. So I think the heat break is Triangle Labs, the heat sink and the heat break are Triangle Labs. The heater block is actually a legit E3D, and the nozzle is a Triangle Labs copper plated nozzle. So it's a copper nozzle with the nickel plate. Is all the gear in your room Wi-Fi? Yes, unfortunately. My router is like an old Asus router. And like, I have so many dang Wi-Fi objects in this house. Like, I really need to upgrade my router, unfortunately. Okay, nozzle's heating up now. I goofed. I got my temperatures backwards, so I was waiting for the bed to drop down to 55. Normally when I print PLA, I have a 60-degree bed for the first layer, and then I drop it after. I put the wrong settings in the slicer, so first layer is going to be 55, and then it jumps up to 60, so I'll just manually change it here. But we're waiting for that. Nozzle's at temperature. So what's it going to do is it's going to ooze a little bit. I didn't retract it, unfortunately. But I have it set up to do a bed mesh, pretty much. So what it does is, once the temperature is stabilized, it does a G28 home. And then it'll do a quick bed mesh, like just a quick one. Because the bed is locked down to the gantry, or to the carriage. I have no manual bed adjustment. There are spacers in there. The bed is solid. I can't actually remember if my Z offset is good. So you can kind of see how fast the Z is there doing the Z hops for the probe. Let me lock that down. Nope, that ain't one. So my starting script is, it does a purge at the beginning. So it goes right to the front. It lays a 10mm bead. I find that's enough to prime the nozzle, so it can go right into printing. I can't remember if I forgot to turn a skirt off, but I normally don't use a skirt. Or brim. Oh, we are way high. We are way high. Drop down. Oh, my Z offset was way off. Okay. We're going to have to cancel that. Pause. Oh yeah, that offset was way off. Screw it. Yeah, let me fix that. Hitting stop. That was lazy. Okay, while that reboots, let me check up on chat here. the design intent of the Switchwire. It was kind of cool. Mr. Russian Cat Food designed it in like 3 months. It's called Switchwire because originally it was capstan. Originally it wasn't belted. It was a capstan design, which is wire instead of belt. But capstan is actually a absolute pain to work with. So he switched it to belt, and it's honestly a heck of a lot easier to build that way too as well. Okay, so let me what am I at? I'm at 0. Okay, so clean that nozzle off. Bring that back down. Oh, I am way off. There's your problem. Where is... I need a piece of paper. Okay, I'm off half a mil. That's why. Yeah. So settings, config, printer config, Z, virtual end stop, probe. That offset is 1.2, so we want 1.7. Save. Okay. Restart. Okay. All, and then print. Try this again. Okay. Reheating. Oh, the design behind... Okay, so CoreXZ, and if you go looking, CoreXZ printers have kind of been around for a bit. For example, here's a video from 2014 of a CoreXZ printer. Now, this is capstan. And you can see the kind of the way the belts run and whatnot. The problem with like a design like this, you turn off power, it drops like a rock. Okay, but this is a capstan CoreXZ. So CoreXZ has kind of been around for quite a while, but it's really never been practical because of the gantry drop issue. And this is it's all cut wood and whatnot, so old school. So CoreXZ has been around, but nobody's ever really taken it and actually made a... Now, this is a rep wrap, right? But nobody's made a functional, like, design that's actually made for, like, widespread usage. This you could sell kits for, and the fact that you can build it cheaper than a Prusa kind of is nice. You don't have to pay for integrated lead screws. Because if you're going to run lead screws, honestly, they should be integrated, because if you have the coupler, that's just more chance of lead screw wobble. You want to be running... integrated, so those are like $30 a pop right there. This, you just avoid that completely. Are files for the dual extrusion part of the afterburner? Yes. The part, I think they are listed under one of the, I think the afterburner repo. So they should be in there. All it is just it's the Bowden afterburner tool head with a Y splitter built into it. So it's a printed Y splitter, printed at 1.1 layer height. But yeah, this is from, everyone. This thing was designed with COVID. Like when COVID started hitting, this was like, hey, I'm bored, and you designed it. So, need a Voron smoker. Yes. Okay, so we're heating back up. Let's stabilize, and we'll go back to printing. Get back here. I want to get that piece. So hopefully I corrected my offset in the correct direction. Otherwise, I'm going to be mashing the baby step button a lot here in a minute. Would a CR10 2017 be a good candidate to convert to a Switchwire, or is it more hassle just starting from scratch? The CR10's kind of big for a Switchwire. You could do it. You would have to take a look into the length of the keyback, because the keyback is only so long. So you might run into issues with the height, but you could reuse. You're pretty sure you could convert it no problem. You just might have to tweak a few things. That's the only difference. Does it use the Mark 52 bed assembly? Yes, it does. Like mine, like modify with the 8 nylock nuts. I'm not sure about the nylock nut mod, English nylock nut mod, but mine, I have the same spacers that we spec for the V2 bed underneath. Okay, there we go. Now we're printing. Okay, I do have skirt enabled. Normally, this prime setup that I have is usually enough to get it not needing to have to do like a skirt or anything else to prime. It primes it enough. Use the threaded rods as Z support. So this gantry is attached to the frame with 2 bolts, and they're M8 bolts because it's 30-30. And this frame is actually ungodly stiff. Like when I first built it, I was surprised on how like rigid this frame is. And it's a blind joint. It's a straight up blind joint. So for the frame, you are going to want to. You're not going to want to cut these extrusions yourself. The frame has to be really square. That's kind of one of the only, like, I'm not going to say downside, but one of the things with the frame is you do need to have really square cuts with the frame, especially for the gantry portion. Otherwise, things won't line up perfectly because it's straight up blind joints. But yeah, that's the thing. Like, right now, it's running with a bed mesh. I didn't save my bed mesh. Console. So let me check here. The highest to the lowest point on my bed is from 1.38 millimeters to 1.9 millimeters. And actually I know I have a bit of rack in the gantry, which is probably that. But I really don't like this PLA. Oh well. It's honestly fine because like it's running with a bed mesh right now, and you can't hear it doing the bed mesh at all because both motors are constantly running with this printer. With this printer, both these motors are constantly moving back and forth. Just the rate that they're moving slightly changes. So you'll never hear that, when you run a traditional printer with a bed mesh, you hear your Z motors, or whatever the noise they make. I can't reproduce it. But the noise that a bed or a Z motor makes when it's doing a bed mesh, that constant grind gear noise. There is no bed mesh noise. It's just printing. Actually, I might be a little too close. Let me come up a bit. I didn't clean this bed either, so I'm hoping this sticks. Yeah, I probably should have cleaned the bed. Oh well. First layer is not perfect, but it's a first layer. This thing's been sitting for a while. As long as it doesn't pop off. And actually, let me get this camera down so I can actually give you guys a closer view of it printing, because wide angle is kind of not great for this. Looking into getting the frame horizontally as a plotter cutter with a custom head. Is there anything on the back preventing that? If you're going to do that, I would look at just look at the original V1 gantry. I would use that as a base, but this you could put a crossbeam so you could basically take this gantry, put another beam on the bottom, and it would be fine. It would function fine. You just have to change the tool head for pacing, you know, that way or that way, however you wanted to. But you could, you know, adapt this to be a plotter relatively easily. Why are you Z hopping? I don't know. I turn combing off so it's Z hopping constantly here. Oh well. So the 4020 fan for the part cooling is starting to ramp up. I can't remember what my setting is in Cura, but cooling. Yeah, so regular fan speed at layer 4, so it's actually going to ramp up relatively quickly. I normally turn it down. I don't like it jumping up that high. Yeah, you know what? I'm going to be that guy. I'm going to cancel the print again. There's too much dust on the bed, and this plastic isn't sticking. So I'm being that guy. Yeah. Clean your bed before you print, guys. Also, I'm not a super huge fan of this flex plate. Like, compared to the ones that I have, this is a Triangle Labs one. Compared to the flex plates I have with just the sticker on it, I don't like it. Okay, let's try this again. This might be really crappy PLA. I can't remember when I bought it. Is it PI? Yes, it is PI, but it's that weird, like, textured PI. I don't know if I scuff it up, if that'll help. I literally have a replacement bed on the way. Like, I do not like this flex plate. Scuff it up a bit. See if that helps. I know other people have complained about Triangle Labs bed before. I'm not a super huge fan of it. It's a black textured PI. I honestly don't have... I'm not a fan of textured PI at all. I prefer just the flat sticker, slightly scuffed with a really high grit sandpaper. I don't have Windex. Like, I legit don't have Windex. We're potty training my son right now. I'm out of cleaner, man. I'm out of toilet paper. I'm out of paper towels. I gotta go hit up the Costco tomorrow, man. Yeah. Grab the plastic without triggering it. There we go. Yeah, I just quickly scuffed it up there. Like, honestly, I'm waiting on... Actually, I can't remember if I ordered or not. I ordered another Energetics Flex plate. Or no, I didn't. I didn't do it. I don't know. Maybe the LDO ones will finally come in stock up here, because I would like the LDO ones. But I'm not a fan of this. This is the Triangle Labs ones. I know the LDO Flex plates are better. Like, I've always had issues with stuff sticking to this bed, and I'm fully blaming the bed. Put it this way, I know somebody who took this bed and took an orbital to it, an orbital sander, to completely grind away all the textured PEI so they can put a sticker on it. I wish this had a flat side so I could just put a sticker on it. I don't like this texture at all. Come on. I really don't. You know what? You know what? I ain't dealing with this. I ain't dealing with this. I know this bed works. Any tips for printing ABS when living in a small one-bedroom apartment trying to print parts for Voron? If you can, fully enclose the printer as best you can. Put it in a closet or something out of the way. Or buy like some sort of bed that, or some sort of plastic that doesn't smell bad, like eSun ABS Plus doesn't smell as bad as some other ABSs. So, ooh, OGD Speed DJ, $5. Get some Windex, bro. Honestly, I'm more of a simple green fan. I like my simple green. Come on. Okay, let's see what my Z offset is, because I'm going to have to adjust the Z offset. I know that. Paper. Okay, so 0.8, so settings, config. Probe. It's 7 plus 8, 4, 15. Save. Restart. Dashboard. Home. Like, honestly, I don't usually run anything on my flex plates. I don't need to run anything on my flex plates. I normally just need to clean them with ISO every now and then. Oh, I went the wrong direction. Okay, settings, -1.5 printer. Save, restart. Isn't bed tuning fun? I was hoping to be printing by now. This always happens. I always end up having to deal with a little dumb issue before we go to print. What's the Switchwire cost if you start with a Prusa? Pretty much just the frame. I believe, and bearings. Frame, bearings, and rail cost. I know somebody's converted a Prusa to a Switchwire already, a Mark III. I'm not sure what their cost was. You have to buy the rails. You have to buy a bunch of bearings. Okay, there we go. That'll do. So move that up. And print. But you can reuse the bed, you can reuse the motors, you can reuse the controller, you can reuse, I think, most of the frame, some of the frame, a good chunk of the frame. Actually, no, because Prusa has that stamped steel frame. Wiring cost, like you got to run wires, drag chain, incidentals, but you're saving, you're saving 50, 85 bucks on the bed. You're saving the cost of the motors. You're saving the controller board cost, the power supply cost, the hot end cost. You need to buy a 4010 fan and a 4020 fan. You can reuse the screen. You can reuse a lot of the stuff that's expensive, but it's still going to cost you probably a couple hundred. Because you got to buy the frame. LDO makes a good frame. Masumi. This is Masumi. Yeah. Reheating to print right now. Yes, you would need 2 more motors, actually, because Prusa has integrated lead screw motors, which is the right way to do lead screws. You want integrated. Okay, so you can kind of hear it right now. But that is the power supply fan kicking on. Normally it only kicks on when the bed's powering up, and every now and then it'll pop on. Now, luckily, it's on the bottom and it's facing down, so it's not as loud as some other printers that have power supply fans that kick on. But you can still hear it when it kicks on. But it's not super loud. It's just another noise. Honestly, yeah. Here's my thing with converting a Mark III. If you'd be better off selling the Mark III and using the funds to build a Switchwire. Because the Mark III is already a good printer, and it's almost it's a value. It's its value, right? Especially with the Prusa support and the warranty and all that. If you have a Prusa Mark III, honestly, I wouldn't convert it to a Switchwire. I would sell it and build a Switchwire. Now, if you had like a Prusa Mark II, then yes, converting that to a Switchwire would definitely help you a lot there. Or any other old i3 Mendel style printer, essentially. Oh yeah, that bed's much bigger. Yeah, Steve. Yeah, one of the devs, the guy who got Switchwire 1, I think, serial, he converted his Mark III into a Switchwire, and then he converted it back and sold it. Whereas I got Switchwire serial number 2 because I had to wait on my bed. Because unlike everyone else, I can't just order from LDO because I'm in Canada. And getting a Mark 52 bed up here is overpriced. Way overpriced. Okay, get rid of that gunk. This looks so much better with a gold bed, by the way. Okay, that's laying down good. Oh, there we go. Maybe a little too much smush. I can live with that. So much better. So much better. I have some spare sheets of PEI. I'm probably going to take a sander to this and grind it flat. I wish they didn't texture both sides. I wish they only textured one side so I could just put a sticker on it. Because, like, my tall boy bed, I have a textured size. I don't use the textured side. I don't like texture. I find it doesn't work as good as some people say it does. I find a slightly sandpapered sticker of PEI works so much better. Okay, that's good. Okay, let's get you guys a camera view so you can actually kind of see this up close. And the red light you're seeing is from the probe. I'm building a Switchwire right now. I was waiting to see you do something with it. Honestly, I was hoping I would be able to build this on stream because I started the build of this. If you go back to one of my V2 streams, because the V2 series was the first stream I did, you can see me playing with like the keyback in one part. And I think the box from Misumi that the extrusions came in was sitting on the floor in one part of it. So I was hoping that it would go live. Like, part of me wanted to wait until it, like, Switchwire went live and then build it on stream. But part of me also wanted to get a low Switchwire serial number. I was hoping to get Switchwire serial 1. I got 2. So the problem is it's already built. So I figured, I did the V2 stream. I tore apart the V0 and rebuilt that on stream. I'm waiting on the lead screw to show up so I can swap that over. Because I got to fix the lead screw wobble issue on that. But I figured I'll do some Switchwire stuff because I don't have any Switchwire videos on my channel. I have one video that's privated, and it's just the my serial, which is this thing printing a cube. What type of PEI sticker would you recommend? If you are in the United States, I recommend buying your PEI from a company called CS Hide. You can order from them directly. If it's a flex plate, I would go with about a 20 mil, so 20 thou thick sheet of PEI, and they sell PEI with the adhesive attached. Make sure you get the stuff with the adhesive attached. If you're putting it on a bed and it's not going to come off, so say you're attaching it right to your slab of aluminum bed, go with like 40 mil. That's what I ran for the longest time. 40 mil is too thick though for a flex plate. I would go 20 mil. The extra thickness is good because it saves you from a nozzle strike. Because remember this part from the Thursday stream that we printed on the on the little mini guide? Well, when I said it stuck really good to the bed, I wasn't lying, and it actually took a chunk out of the bed when I was prying it off, or trying to pry it off. And this this plastic is like fused to the bed. So I have a bunch of scrap. Well, not scrap. I have spare PEI. So I'm going to do a video probably on how to remove PEI and reapply it. Because there's a little trick for removing these, and apparently it works really good. I'm going to give it a shot and see how well it works, and then make a little video about it. If you're in Europe, Mueller is the PEI one. Yes, in Europe, in Euroland, they want Mueller is a good stuff. You're building yours from the ground up. The problem is there's really nothing on it that's super complicated. Like it's all like 2 parts go together and then you have a bearing stack, or 3 parts go together and then you have a bearing stack, or even the motor mounts for the XZ motors are just like 2 printed parts. So if you have the CAD and you have a general understanding of how a 3D printer works, building one is not complicated. No, this one is Bowden. This one is not a direct feed. However, this tool head does support a direct feed. So this could be direct feed, no problem. I just have this one set up for Bowden so I can play around with dual extrusion through a Y splitter. Right now, I'm not doing dual extrusion right now. This is just regular extrusion. Single extrusion. But yeah, the full CAD of it is out there. So as long as you kind of know what you're looking at, it's not that hard. And if you have any questions, just ask. Go to the Voron Discord if you're not a member of the Voron Discord. There's a whole section for Switchwire questions. The light speed. This one is Bowden. It's optional. You can either have a direct feed tool head or you can have a Bowden tool head. This one is set up for Bowden because all my other printers are direct. Well, except for V0. My other 2 big printers are direct feed. So I wanted a normal printer that I could put a Bowden extruder on to test Bowden extruders. So another cool thing with the afterburner, you get this really fancy angle with the LEDs in there. Ooh, fancy. You can get the limit switches, the PL08 or PL05, normally open or normally closed. This one, I can't remember which one's which, but basically one of them, when it gets within whatever its sense distance of the bed, it lights up. And the other one, it's always lit up, and when it gets within the sense distance of the bed, it turns off. So personally, I like the ones that light up all the time and then they turn off when you get next to the bed, because that way during most of the print you get a cool glowing tool head for free. I'm on the Discord, by the way, Spot and Leroy. Hope you're having fun. But yeah, if you do have any questions, like, the community is great for helping. That's so quiet. How many bottom layers? I think I have 4 bottom layers. I should have dropped down the bottom layers. But, oh well. And for those that don't know, who have just joined, we're doing the lattice cube thing. It's 4 hours. I'm not gonna stream for 4 hours. I will probably stream till 11, like I always do, and then I'll post pictures on my Twitter. Which, chill time. I have a Twitter at 3DPNero. Join the Twitter, or follow me on Twitter. I guess that's what the term is. I post random pictures of stuff that's not worth making it into a video, or just updates when I'm streaming. As I said on Thursday stream, that was probably gonna be the last Thursday stream for a while. I'm back to work now. My temporary layoff due to COVID-related work shortages was shorter than I thought. So I'm no longer a professional YouTuber for fun. Part-time YouTuber for fun now. But yeah. Wow, 125. So I got 125 viewers, but only 51 likes. So somebody's not hitting that like button. Do it. Do it now. I could have subjected you to another Benchy. How many printer streams have you seen where they print a Benchy? I'm not doing that right now. I'm showing you something cooler than a Benchy. I'm showing you a cube that deserves at least 1 like. Oh, and subscribe and ring the bell and, well, I don't know, whatever cookie cutter thing everyone else says. Join my OnlyFans. Wait, I don't have that yet. Yeah, so mil versus mil. Mil, M-I-L, is French for like millionth or whatever the frick it is, but it's basically 1,000ths. So like for those that do construction for homes and whatnot, 6 mil poly for your vapor barrier isn't 6 millimeter thick. It's 6/1000ths of an inch thick, right? So mil is thousands. If you work in like the tool trade like I do, you'll often hear thou used as a term. So this is 15 thou thick. This is 40 thou thick. Mil and thou are kind of different. Mil is not short for millimeter. Okay, millimeter is millimeter. It's confirmed Nero has OnlyFans. You guys are my OnlyFans. Aww. Although I did set up, because people have messaged me about ways to support the channel outside of YouTube donations, which at the moment, that's for the most time, that's all I have. So if you do donate to this, like you want to donate to me, it's mostly through YouTube donations during streams, which I appreciate, and they go to funding more content for the stream. But I have set up I think it's Buy Me a Coffee. There should be a link below in the description, and I have one on my Twitter. That takes a smaller cut of donations. I put it at like the lowest option, it's like $3. But that is now another option for those that want to help support me. You can buy me a coffee, and that takes a smaller cut than YouTube donations, I believe. Because like I tried to do, I don't want to set up like a straight up donation link or anything like that. Because I tried and PayPal said I'm not a company or something, so I couldn't do it anyways. But I did set that up for those that want to help out the stream and can't either watch the live streams or whatever. Yeah. Because I was going to turn on membership donations, like have a membership for the channel. But the way YouTube does it, I'm not a fan of it because I have to set a fixed amount. And all I was going to do is, you know, how I normally end my stream with, while I'm cleaning up, I leave the stream open for like the last 10-15 minutes and we just talk about whatever and random questions and answer stuff or looking at whatever people want me to look at. I was going to set it up where for any amount you can become a member and then that would just be a membership thing. But I have to put fixed values and I don't want to put fixed values. So I'm not going to bother. Where can you buy a full Switchwire or 2.4 kit? Unfortunately, there are no... Actually, I don't look for kits. So there are kits for some Voron printers on AliExpress. Some vendors like LDO have component kits of certain components, but not a full kit. But it's a self-built rep wrap printer. This isn't a store printer. This isn't, Voron Design isn't Prusa. It's not Creality. It's not Anycubic. It's not any of the other, this isn't an Ultimaker, right? You have to build this yourself. Yeah. Okay, so right now we're doing infill at, what do we go for infill speed? 120? So we're doing infill at 120 millimeters a second at 3,000 acceleration. We're a black. You know what? I saw a black apron, but I didn't like the material. It was like a cotton thing, and I wanted leather because it's more durable. Am I printing at Voron speeds? Oh, yes, this is technically Voron speeds. This is 60, 90, 120. The only difference is because it is a bed flinger and I don't have an input shaper, I do have the accelerations tuned down a bit. And by the way, this is the same apron. If you go to Adam Savage's YouTube channel, Tested, there's a link to this apron. I actually kind of like it. It's handy. Plus, it's my gimmick. I'm the guy who wears that apron while he works on printers. Everyone needs a gimmick. I need a logo. That's what I need. My channel logo is made in like 5 seconds in MS Paint. I smell popcorn. Honestly, it's the smell of PLA that I notice more than the smell of ABS, because I'm so used to printing ABS. When I print PLA, it's weird to me because I'm not used to the smell. Where can you buy it? Oh, there is no Voron branded apron, unfortunately. If I ever do grow the channel to the point where I have a store, I will put an apron up. An Amazon affiliate link. I don't know how to even get an Amazon. I haven't looked into any of that. Like I'm slacking. I'll admit I'm slacking in my channel, my content creator duties. Like by now I should have a little thing that pops up in the stream when people donate and whatnot, but I don't, because I haven't looked up on how to do that yet. Or I watched a video and it was like, okay, you have to like copy all these links before each stream, and I'm like, I don't want to do that. I just want to hit start and go. So right now, if you donate, it pops up in the chat and I have to read you out, which I read you out anyways, but I don't have anything popping up on screen. Although I probably should do that, because according, it's positive reinforcement and people like positive reinforcement. So when you subscribe and your name pops up on the screen and the streamer goes, hey, so-and-so, and then they go, hey, I've been acknowledged, I'm happy. Marketing fail. Oh yeah, speaking of marketing, it's not marketing. Let me take my glass off. The stream also on Tuesday, or on Thursday, I was printing that splicer mask, and it finished. So I printed the one, and it cracked on me, because I didn't have my settings right for high impact polystyrene. But the second one printed just fine. So this is MakerBot high impact polystyrene. It's like 5-year-old filament that buddy at work, when they got a Ultimaker, or not Ultimaker, a MakerBot Replicator 2X, the dual extrusion one. It came with a roll of hips, and it sat unopened, or it sat opened in a drawer in a tool shop floor for like 3 or 4 years. And then he's like, oh, here, take it. And he gave it to me. I ran it through the dryer, and yeah, printed fine. This is with my Fadis High Flow Dragon, 0.6 millimeter nozzle, 0.3 layer height, and this was a 7-hour print, roughly. Printed with minimal supports, just supports here and for the eyes. Everything else was just free. Now, it is hips, so I do have some minor cracking. I found high impact polystyrene really likes to crack, or at least this stuff does. So I do have some minor layer delamination cracks, but it's really stiff. It's really stiff, but it turned out fine. So if you go on my Twitter at 3DPNero, I have pictures of this guy. I also posted some pictures in the gallery section of the Voron Discord. What do you use for a dryer? I use a old go back to the print. It's going really slow because it thinks that's a top layer. It like curves in, so it's doing like a really, really small top layer. I bought a food dehydrator at Crappy Tire. Shout out to Canadians. That I just cut the grills out so that it fits a spool of filament. So it's just like a $40 or $30 food dehydrator. Drag chains, buy or print. You know what? It depends what kind of wire you're using, honestly. If you are using silicone wire, I would print them, because I had less issues with the printed drag chains rubbing on my silicone wire drag chains, or wiring loom, than when I switched to the bought ones. Now, the ones I bought were the Chinese ones, and the Chinese ones have the a crappier plastic injection on them, so they have sharper edges. So they started actually wearing away my silicone wires. So I went about fixing that issue in two ways. I live in Canada and can't get PTFE wire cheap, unfortunately. Although Remington now has some stuff that's better. But if you are using PTFE wire, go buy drag chains, right? I guess, or the China ones, go buy them. But if you are using silicone, print them, because they won't damage your wires as easily. Now, to get around that, on V226, I literally slathered the wires and the drag chain itself with PTFE grease to lube everything up so it doesn't rub, and it works. And then on Tallboy, I have the wires actually in a braided sleeve, like so. Just a generic braided sleeve, and then I stuff that into the drag chain, just so they don't rub, and it works fine. IGUS are the best, but IGUS are expensive, unfortunately, and not everyone can get them. So they are the best, though. This guy is just silicone by itself in the drag chain. I didn't do anything fancy. Although I did run them with a little bit more knowledge now that I know about the rubbing issue, so I don't think I'll have any issues. I don't put as many hours on this printer as my other ones, though. Any tips for staying sane waiting for Voron parts to arrive? Subscribe to my channel and watch my videos. I have like a full V2, V0, and a half dozen other streams. Plenty of stuff there to keep you busy until the parts show up. Otherwise, the worst part is when you have everything except for one part for an assembly or the printer itself. I was that with V2 when 2.2 came out. I was stuck waiting on bearings for the new 2.2 Z motor mounts for like 4 weeks. That was the only component I was waiting on. I finally broke down and bought them on Amazon. They were going to show up on the Friday. I ordered them on the Wednesday. On the Thursday, the ones from AliExpress showed up. Yes, Dom. The only downside with the wire loom is Tallboy online. Yes, Tallboy is online. Let me pull up Tallboy. So the only downside with putting the wiring loom or the wiring loom inside a braided cable sleeve and then putting that in the drag chain is let me see here. Let me get it on camera. Yeah, you can see it there. Okay, so I got Switchwire or Tallboys online right now. You can see the loop is much larger. And that's because they don't bend as easily. There's more, the wires are now stiffer because you also have the drag chain and sleeving inside of it. So the loops are going to be bigger, okay? If you're okay with that, then it's fine. But if you're not okay with that, you're going to have to go about it another way. Yeah, the Voron Discord's a great place. There's you know, it is a printer-centric Discord, but there are a few channels for non-printer stuff to chat there. But it is mostly a printer Discord. I don't like the red of this PLA, I will say. Bloody JMF. So many devs in land of Schnitzel. Yes, the German Voron group, the German section of the Voron Discord. They are like crazy German engineers down there, and they do some like insane stuff. Like they're up there when with like the Chinese when it comes to like an awesome Voron like community for like a language or geographical specific area. Like, honestly, I wish the Chinese Voron community could hang out in the same Discord. They can't because of the Great Firewall of China. But I've seen some of the stuff they pulled off in Vorons in China. They had one guy made an IDEX V2. Like, he just made it. He designed it and made it. It's insane. Plus, they have no shame in colors. They go nuts with the color combinations. It's awesome. Filament looks orange. Yeah, it's red, but like I can't remember. I bought it on Amazon because it was on sale, but this is all I got is 1.75 PLA Pro filament red made in China, and there's no other markings on the spool, and nothing on the bag, and nothing inside the bag. Like, this is all I got. It didn't come in a box either, but I'm running low on PLA. Because honestly, I only print PLA on the streams because it's easier to show a printer that's not enclosed. What do you think would possibly go? Some kind of ribbon cable for the signal wires and lower power stuff. People have used ribbon cable in the past. The only issue with it is you have to really make sure it's laid flat. And also, if like one wire goes, you're kind of screwed with the whole run. But it is possible to use ribbon cable. Honestly, your best bet right now is the Remington PTFE or any other PTFE wire, high strand count. Because PTFE, the sleeve on it is just so slippery and tough, it works great. Yeah, a bunch of crappy reds come out orange. It's the way that plastics are. Remember, plastics aren't really dyed. You have like a raw neutral color, and then they add pigmentation to it in the form of like filament pellets, essentially. Like they're separate, they're colorant pellets, and then they melt it all together and mix it up, and then extrude the plastic that way. So a lot of times the colorant that they use is kind of crappy. I don't know if it's starting to warp up on one section there or what. No. Okay, so now it's going to be Z-hopping like mental, I think. Because we're getting pretty close to doing the towers. And I use cheap China fans, so if you're hearing a slight rattle when it's doing these moves, most likely that's the fan. Because I buy cheap fans because I don't care. They sit in my basement. Patrick, honestly, for industrial style solution, we have looked into like using an off-the-shelf IGUS wire that's drag chain rated. Like, believe me, we know there's a lot of Voron devs that have made contacts with a lot of people in a lot of industries over the years, and we've kind of looked. The problem is, it would be awesome if there was an off-the-shelf solution that worked amazing for the drag chain issue. Because honestly, in terms of Voron, that's always been like the issue that has kind of not plagued, but has plagued Voron since day one of the V2. It's never really been an issue with the V1 until like most recently when we switched to using drag chains in the V1. But like the original V1 or V2, you had the belt chain, which was great, but it was really tight and a pain to work with, and we recommend Cat 5 wire back in the day because we didn't realize how bad that would be in drag chains over a couple thousand hours. And then silicone wires and the tape chain, which I was the first Voron with the tape chain. I was the trial for that, and it worked great until you got to a few thousand hours. And then we went to the drag chains, all the printed chains, and then the drag chains. The problem is there's no real off-the-shelf solution for cramming, almost 30 wires in a 10 by 11 drag chain. It's not super common. There are some people looking at some ways to kind of get around that, but nothing's finalized or near, done, put it that way. So essentially the current solution is the best solution we can come up with. Also, another thing you have to keep in mind is, one thing we always keep in mind is sourcing. Because this isn't a kit printer, if we were sitting in one area and we were selling these worldwide, it would be so much easier just to, if we swap something out, be like, okay, because it's all made in one location. The problem is people build Vorons all over the world. So when we recommend a component in the sourcing guide, it's almost got to be able to get worldwide. So that was one thing that we were really worried about. The keyback for the counterweight on this guy was, okay, they're great, but you can only get them in the US. Well, that screws over the whole European guys, or the Canadian people, or whatever, the Australian, the Aussies. So we always kind of have to keep that in mind, is the best solution that is available worldwide. And unfortunately, when it comes to worldwide, 90% of the time that's like China. Like, as long as you can order it on AliExpress, you're good. Because most people, that's where they get a lot of components. Okay, so now we're doing the actual lattice part of the lattice cube thing. How many guys on the Voron team? I have no clue, man. I have no clue. A lot. It's not really a team. It's just, a group of people throwing ideas in the hat. A lot of the projects are mostly helmed by like one or two or just a couple people, with just a lot of people putting input into it, that idea. Like, for example, Switchwire was pretty much all Russian cat food. Same with V2.4 for the most part. V1.8 was Eddie the engineer for a good chunk of it, with some help from Russian cat food. Nemgria did pretty much all of V0 from the ashes of the original V0 that Russian cat food started. Like, nothing is the same. Like, he completely scratch designed that. Like most of us, like, I'm just there for testing and idea input. But yeah, it's not like a team, right? There's no like actual roster of these guys do this. It's mostly just, a couple guys that are really good with CAD, and then a bunch of other people throwing ideas at them, or testing stuff out for them, or whatnot. So unfortunately, this design is really good for showing off the Z-Hop and how fast a 300mm travel is. But unfortunately, the actual print part is slow and boring. So. But we are doing the lattice cube. This is the mainsail in progress screen. You got your baby stepping. I don't have a webcam plugged in. If I did, it would be showing here. Console. Oh, hey, it keeps trying to do a reprap firmware command that it don't have. Keep forgetting that with Kira. I got manage. Nope, not even yet. What am I doing? Machine settings, reprap. Marlin. There we go. It tries to send a reprap firmware command that Clipper doesn't recognize, so it just says, what is this? I don't know what to do with it. On to the next step. So it's not really an issue, but I keep forgetting that I gotta turn that off. So I will say I'm not having any stringing issues with this plastic so far. Not a super fan of the color. It's a very not red. It's red, but it's not red. I don't know. Yeah, Misumi rails are high. I think they carry Highwind as their reseller. Or I think that maybe they just buy rails from like CNA on AliExpress or LDO. Honestly, they're 3D printers. The Highwinds are better, yes, but they're not the price they're asking for better for a 3D printer. Like, for the amount it would cost to build one of these with like Highwind rails versus just cheap China rails, you can pretty much buy the other major components of the printer and buy Chinese rails for just the cost of Highwind rails. Problem is I can't move in too much closer because the focus on this camera kind of sucks. So yeah, you can see how the bed drag chain works. So it's a 20. It's a standard. You know, it's the same drag chain as up here. It's just tilted on its side, and it works quite well. There we go. What I may do, instead of signing off at 11, I might just leave the stream running and turn off my camera. And then let the print finish. We'll see. Hopefully it doesn't spaghettify on me. And then I'll just make sure that I set an alarm if I can fall asleep before this stream. I work afternoon, so I'm used to being up late anyways, but bedroom's above here and other people need to sleep. So I can't be down here all night chatting. So while that's doing there, I always, by the way, my streams are always open when it comes to QA. So if anyone has any questions about anything Voron or 3D printing or whatever, you're free to ask them. So because right now I can't really show off much on the printer other than it printing, because for those who watched my V0 video when we were trying to print while I was holding the printer upside down, it can cause issues. If anyone wants me to look over anything or whatever, go over anything, open floor, go ahead. Spaghetti Detective. I've never used Spaghetti Detective. The only plugins I ever used for like Octoprint back in the day were, I think Night Mode, if that's a plugin or that's default. The Clipper plugin. Like, I never ran plugins. I don't know. How's dual extrusion? Honestly, it's not as robust as I hoped it would be. It's using a Y splitter, right? So like, yeah, I've done good prints, right? I always pull this guy out because it's probably one of the better dual extrusion prints I've done. But I really, I built it to try out dual extrusion. Turns out I don't really need dual extrusion for anything I'm doing. Like, I print mostly Voron parts, which don't really need support. And I don't print a lot of functional, like artsy parts that need support or need dual extrusion. If I need color to it, I'll paint it. So I built this guy. I did a bunch of testing with it, and then I moved on to other stuff, like namely the little mini i3 there and YouTube stuff. Is there a notable difference in CNA versus RoboDig and LDO? People have said the LDOs are pretty good, but all my printers use CNA rails, and I haven't had any issues with them. I would say LDO, you're more likely to have less issues with the rails. They seem to have better quality control. But I've ordered 20-something rails from CNA over the past 3 years, and I've only had one rail that was straight up bad. When printing ABS, the first 15 to 20 layers seem to bulge out. not happening with PLA, PTG, or TPU. It could be an issue with your bed temperature and the heat. Also, it could be a different issue with your cooling or lack of cooling. I find my parts tend to... I don't have anything straight. Do I have anything straight walls here I can show off? Like my first couple layers end up elephant footing because I usually over smush my first layer. I'd rather it be slightly squished to the bed and have a slight, elephant foot than pop off into a 20-hour print. But if it's like straight up curving out like a lot, you might be over extruding those first few layers. I believe there are settings in most slicers that allow you to control flow for the first few layers. But usually I think it's a temperature issue is the most common one. And that's because it's hotter down there. The plastic's more likely to expand. RoboDig's a bit... I would go LDO over RoboDig, but I've never used either of them. I'm just going off what I've heard from others. In what ways have dual extrusion been less robust for you? I've got the Y splitter here, and I've been planning to play around. It's mostly just tuning difficulties. Like, I've had to teach myself Prusa Slicer because Cura and the way it does the swapping between the two filaments has just been... I couldn't get it working right. It always jammed. And even with Prusa Slicer, with a Y splitter, Y splitters are finicky with the way the attraction or the retraction and the retraction and the reinsertion are. It's just very easy to have a jam. And I did do a few prints that were like a full day print of dual extrusion, and I would still look at it and I'd see, okay, I missed a layer there, or I missed a layer there, or under extruded there. So I've never had it, as reliable as just single color extrusion. So it's always been kind of niche for me, in my opinion. But I do have one if I do feel like playing with it. That was kind of why. Now, again, I've never actually spent months tuning this like I have, my other printers, right? V226 has had 2.5 years of work on it. So I know exactly what this machine can do. This, I built it, did a bunch of prints, and then it's mostly been kind of a side project. I switched my Z-axis, and now you get weird diagonal artifacts. Usually if it's on a diagonal, it would be an X and Y thing. It might be an issue now that you're no longer seeing Z issues. You're seeing XY issues now because they're now more visible now that your Z issue has gone away. That is a thing that with 3D printers, that you start seeing issues that were never an issue before on other printers because they had problems that were bigger that masked smaller issues. So it could be because you're no longer having Z wobble or whatever, lead screw wobble, that now because you don't have wobble in your Z, now that your Z is all nice and perfectly lined up, that inherent diagonal issue that you never saw in your XY before due to motor stepping or motors itself or whatever is now visible. That is a possibility, and I have seen stuff like that happen. So how are the cables holding up with the braided sleeving? So far they've been fine, but I've only swapped them over a couple weeks ago, and I only maybe have like 150, 200 hours of print time with them. But so far they seem to be fine. If you do not know which one to build, if you currently have a 3D printer, that makes it a lot easier to decide on what to do next. If you do not have a 3D printer, you never built a printer before, I would say maybe start with the V1. It's a simpler design. The V2 honestly isn't that much more complicated. It's just it's more expensive and more complicated because you have the flying gantry. The V0 is a great backup printer, or a second printer, I wouldn't build it as my only printer simply for the smaller print volume, and it is a complicated build. You have to follow the manual for it because it does have a very rigid order of operations when it comes to building it. As for Switchwire, again, Switchwire is good for if you already have a lot of stuff sitting around or you want a bed flinger style printer that's awesome. How much total cost to build a V2.4? Depends where you are in the world and how good you are at sourcing stuff. Usually $1 to $1,200 USD before shipping. Add a couple hundred every time you go up in size from 250. Plus minus 200 to 300 depending on how you are with sourcing. I've heard of people building them for under 1,000, and I've seen people drop like $2,000 into them. It really depends. There is a sourcing guide, so you can go through and basically add everything to your cart and see how much it would cost you to build it. If you go to the Voron Design website, go to the configurator for whatever printer, or the V2.4 in this case, and you can see the sourcing guide and you can see recommended links. Now, for the items in the sourcing guide, those are all items that we just know work, okay? There may be better options out there. There probably are cheaper options, alternative options. Those options are mostly picked because we know they work. So if you go to vorondesign.com, and this also kind of applies to people that want to mod the printer before even building it, we recommend building it stock because we know it works in the stock configuration. So it makes troubleshooting a lot easier, because if you come to us and say, hey, I built my Voron, I'm having this issue. By the way, I modded it to use 12 MGN 12 everywhere, and I'm running a Mahara hot end that I somehow managed to strap to it. I'm having these issues, then we don't know what the issue is. Like, it's better to build it stock and then modify from there. Same with buying. We know everything in the sourcing guide works. So if you don't know what you should buy for where you should source a certain component, look to the sourcing guide, because we know that component works, because most of us, or a good chunk of us, are probably running that part in our printer right now. Like, I don't want to know how much I have in V226 back here, because this guy was originally a V2, then a 2.1, then a 2.2, and now it's a half 2.2, 2.4 that I need to finish converting into a 2.4. And parts have been bought for this printer that have never even been on the printer. So I have an Ender 3 V2, but I don't want to use any of its parts. Should I still start with the V1? If you're comfortable building the V2, a 300 millimeter. Okay, so if somebody came up to me like, hey, you can only have one Voron, it would be a 300 V2. Okay, so 300 millimeters, because honestly, that's the best size for the V2 in my opinion. Mine's 250, but I built a 250 because I have a bigger printer. Okay, now I have a 330 by 330 V2 by almost 400 Z, because originally that was a V1 that was 300 by 300. So I didn't need a bigger printer than my big printer, so I built a smaller V2. But a 300 V2 would be my, if I could only have one Voron, that would be the Voron I want. And also, it's better than the 350 because it's going to be cheaper than the 350, simply for the fact that 350 beds components can get pricey really quick, especially the PEI. And usually most people who build a 350 don't need a 350. It's a big printer. Like my 330 by 330 by 400, the reason it is still running Octoprint and I haven't swapped it over to mainsail or fluid is because I don't want to flip it over because it's too damn big. And I literally don't have room to flip it over. I got to flip it over on the floor. And it weighs like 50 pounds. And it's like this freaking big. Okay, quit. I'm gonna turn off autofocus because I'm sure that autofocus is annoying you guys. Video, camera control, focus, apply. There we go. Now, of course, I'm going to move the camera and be like, why isn't autofocus working? Yeah, you could spend a lot of, like, especially like, you know, like panels, right? So, for example, V226 here. This guy is all acrylic around. So the side panels, the front panel, and the top panel are acrylic, are plexiglass. The side ones are smoked plexiglass, so they're tinted. And then the rear panel is an ABS panel, okay? My bottle panel is aluminum because I had the option of doing that because I work in a tool shop. Tall boy here is a cheap piece of acrylic I picked up at Canadian Tire or Home Depot. And then I have Coroplast on all the other sides. So the enclosure for Tallboy was maybe, you know, 40, 50 bucks at most. The enclosure for this guy was like 100 plus. So, like, that's an option. That's where it comes down to. You know, you can spend money in different ways with a Voron. You can go really expensive, or you can go, you know, if you slap a Triangle Labs V6 in one of these guys, that's 13 bucks, 14 bucks for the whole hot end. If you slap a Slice Mosquito High Flow, up here in Canada, those things are almost $300 once you have all the components for them. So you can spend a lot of money, or you can, well, you're still going to spend a bit of money, but you can save quite a bit. Does the Dragon work in the Switchwire after? Yes, the only difference between the afterburner for the Switchwire for the V2 and the V1 is just how it mounts to the rail. The actual hot end assembly and the extruder assembly and the fan assemblies are the same. Okay, so like I can literally take, you know, this is my Mosquito in a fan shroud. I can throw this in here, no problem. I can literally just take this one out and put this in, plug it in, and it's good to go. Okay, so yeah, you can use the Dragon. The only I'm running a V6 in here because the V6 has less tolerance for the inlet going to the hot end in the heat break. And because this is set up for dual extrusion, where it's going to have that bulb on the end of the filament from the retraction and reinsertion, the sloppier tolerance is better. Stick a dragon. I don't have a dragonfly. And honestly, I would get a dragon over a dragonfly simply for the ability to do the one-handed tool changes and the mounting. I know both of them can be rigid mounted, but officially we don't support the two screw style like the Micro Swiss uses, that the Ender 3 uses, and the I think that's what the Dragonfly uses for the one option. The other option is a groove mount, which groove mount needs to die. So yeah, I haven't tried any of the Mosquito clones. Like, both my Mosquitoes are legit. Like, these are Slice Mosquitoes. They're Gen 1 or V1 Slice Mosquitoes. The one in V226, that Mosquito lives in there. That is my workhorse printer. That hot end has been 100% reliable since the day I got it, and it eats everything I feed it, and that will live in there. That is that machine's hot end, and I won't be swapping it out anytime soon. It's a great hot end. But going forward, it's an expensive hot end. Tallboy, I have a Fetus High Flow Dragon in there right now, courtesy of Banggood. I need to do a video on that because Banggood's like, oh, you got to do the video. We gave you the hot end. So I will be doing a video on that for a review. But long story short, it's a great hot end and it's high flow and it's a decent price. Like, the problem is all good hot ends are good. It's just they have little quirks and things that make them, you know, a little bit easier to work with, or mounting is good. You know, honestly, if I were to show you three benchies, one was printed on a V6, one was printed on a Slice Mosquito, and one was printed on a Fetus Dragonfly, and somebody took the time to properly tune a profile for all three of those printers, and they gave you each benchy, and they didn't tell you which one came from which hot end, and they said which one came from which hot end. I guarantee you the vast majority of people, if they got the answer right, it was mostly because of a guess. You wouldn't be able to tell. Because a good hot end is a good hot end. It's just, you know, hey, I like one-handed nozzle changes and rigid mounting. I'm not going to use a V6 then. Hey, I don't care about one-handed nozzle changes. I'm fine with groove mount. V6 print's good too. Hey, how fast do you want to print? What temperature do you want to print at? So. Is the flying gantry easy to explain? I tried looking it up, and I'm still not sure what that means. Okay, what that means, do I have V226 online? Yes, I do. Connect. Oh, no, it's off. No, it's on. Oh, I gotta throw a flex plate in there, because I don't have... Crappy flex plate, go! I gotta reboot it. Actually, why do I gotta do this? I got a video. Here, I'm gonna show you guys. Drop a panel. I'm going to leave the other flex plate in there in case I accidentally decide to run gantry home on that printer and I don't want to crash. So while I'm trying to find this video, I just turned in, how are you doing dual extrusion on that? I'm not printing dual extrusion right now, but it's essentially just a Y splitter with two extruders. So it's just a Y splitter in the tool head, essentially. Nope. Videos. I do too many. Oh my god, how many videos have I done? Was it before the tall boy? Okay, here we go. So flying gantry, okay? Yes, you're watching my YouTube channel. You're watching my live stream of me watching my own YouTube videos. So what a flying gantry is I'm talking here and I'm moving my hands around, but essentially the gantry isn't fixed, okay? So on a traditional CoreXZ printer, like, I'll grab my V0. Okay. The gantry, which does your XY motion, right? You know, your tool head moves around XY, right? Okay, that stays fixed and your bed moves in the Z. Well, in a V2, your gantry is mounted on rails in the four corners, and I'm purposely skewing it here so it's out of level, okay? So what a flying gantry allows you to do is, instead of having to do a bed mesh, okay, as long as your bed is flat enough for 3D printing, in this case this is a cast aluminum tooling plate that is ground flat with a flat piece of spring steel on it. On Tallboy, my bed is flat enough, I don't need to do any bed mesh at all. Well, your gantry's out of alignment, right? Because it's all cockeyed and crooked there. I purposely put my gantry really bad in this video, okay? So what it does is, it homes like a traditional printer, but now the gantry can drop down, and there's a probe in there, and the probe probes the bed in the four corners, and then it does math, which is math and sucks, but it does the math, and then it'll compensate the correction of the motor. So watch. See how the gantry tilted there? What it does is the motors run together when the whole gantry moves up and down, but it has the option of running each motor independently to correct the offset so that now the gantry is trammed out to the bed. Also, this is really good when you're printing, because see how this is moving? When your bed doesn't move, your moving mass of the print while the printer is running remains unchanged. So, for example, when you see people printing on a CR, let me pull up a video here. So, let me find something. Here, Joel. Good old Joel. Let me pull up a video of Joel. Okay. So, no, that's not the right one. Oh, here you go. Whatever this guy is. Gordon. Here you go, Gordon. So, take a look at this, okay? Look at this guy. He prints props, right? He prints lots of props. See how big these objects are? How much do you think these weigh? So I guarantee you the bed of this printer, when it's doing, it moves, the bed moves. I guarantee you that bed is going to behave much differently when it's empty or when it has 2 kilos of plastic on it, okay? So what that means is when you have a flying gantry printer, like the V2, or to a lesser extent a fixed gantry moving Z bed printer, you're basically minimizing deviation in the way the machine performs. So that means the gantry will move the same down here as it does up here, and it'll have the same weight, so accelerations will be the same. So that means the way it extrudes plastic will be the same, so you'll have less issues with ringing, print wobbling, stuff like that. So it allows you to basically be more accurate because it's removing variables. So yeah, CoreXZ is weird. It's been around for a bit. it's always been mostly like a trade show type thing where people have built the odd one-off machine. This is, I think, to my knowledge, the first like mass producible, ready to go printer. But it's not mass produced because it's a kit printer or it's a hobby printer. You got to build it yourself. Why is somebody saying plop? This may end poorly. What may end poorly? Y-splitter nice. Do you have any specific filament change? Prusa Slicer handles it pretty well. I've had to tweak some settings. I can't. It's on my computer upstairs, unfortunately. But yeah, I'm still playing around with settings because it's still not perfect, and it's. I got a feeling it'll always kind of be an imperfect science, especially with Y-splitters. I would love to, like, I know what it would take to design a perfect dual extrusion hot end. The problem is the stuff that you would want in it doesn't scale down to the size we use. So, yes, that's another good thing with deltas. The problem with delta, though, is the way the kinematics work, you actually lose dimensional accuracy near the edges of the bed. I think it's either at the base of the tower or between towers. So there are downsides to the delta kinematic thing. Now you can compensate for those inaccuracies in software, but it still has inherent accuracies. Plus with the delta, you have to have that super light tool head, bowed in, which can be an issue. Also, it makes it really tall for the Z height of the printer is very tall for the Z print volume. I always would like to have a delta, but just to watch it work and probably not use it as a workhorse printer. Brad Cook, $5. Thank you, man. Appreciate it. Hope you're enjoying the stream tonight. Yeah, dimensional accuracy is an issue with deltas. Like, I was actually looking at, before I built the little i3, the Bonsai, I was actually looking at DIY deltas. But it just really, nothing really clicked. Whereas the Bonsai, I had all the components for pretty much. Aaron F, they're pretty much the default settings for Prusa Slicer. I think all I've changed was the distances, and that depends on the tool head you're using. So there really isn't much different from the stock settings. I wouldn't honestly use it because it doesn't work that great. Like, it works, but it's I'm not happy with it. So, yeah. Is there any reason not to get the high flow? So, the general consensus is with a high flow hot end, if you print at 0.4 millimeters a lot, it's kind of a waste because even though you can push out more plastic, you're printing at such a speed that the print's going to look like garbage anyways. I've done 300 millimeters a second benchy. They look like garbage. You can't get a good quality benchy at 300 millimeters a second, right? So you're going to be printing slower than that. And if you're printing, 120 or lower for print speeds at 0.4 millimeter nozzle, 0.2 layer height, you're not going to outrun a standard flow nozzle. So where high flow comes in to use is if you want to print at those same high speeds, and by high speeds I mean like 60, 90, 120, right? Outer wall, inner wall, infill, 300 travel, although travel speed doesn't matter for hot end selection. If you want to print at those speeds with a 0.8 millimeter nozzle or a 0.6 millimeter nozzle with 0.3 layer height, that's what I've been playing around with a lot lately. With the tall boy was just running a 0.6 nozzle at my normal speeds and just having no issues with flow issues. So even then, a lot of people, stringing was always the issue brought up. However, I know I have a print. Yeah, no. Dang it, I'm missing a benchy. It might be upstairs. I gotta find it. Hope I didn't throw it out. Or maybe it's over here with a pile of benches. Nope, it's not with this pile of benchies. Oh, there it is. Okay. So, this benchy was literally the first print I printed with my high flow, with a 0.4 millimeter nozzle, and there's really no stringing issues. I was always worried with high flow that you would have a lot of stringing issues, and maybe there will be with different plastics or whatever. But with this, you know, whatever filament this was PLA, by the way, I didn't have stringing issues. So there's a little bit more fuzz, but that just kind of comes off if you blow on it. So it really depends. Now, if you only ever plan on printing with a 0.4 millimeter nozzle, a high flow hot end is pretty much a waste. I guarantee that. But if you do want to use those fatter nozzles at high speeds, then yeah, I would look into getting a high flow. The only difference is with the high flow, you are going to have to tune it a little bit more. You're going to have to usually run a higher pressure advance setting. And you may have more ooze issues and potentially more heat creep issues just because it's got a larger melt zone. So it's great if you need that extra, but if you're only going to print like at the 0.4 nozzle at our normal Voron speeds, it's kind of overkill because you would have more chance to have more issues with a high flow than with a regular flow nozzle. Okay, now let me catch back up here. Hark, $5. I watched those. Yeah, English. I watched these enough. Might as well send some money your way. Keep up the great work. Your stuff is great. The bonsai was a fun one to watch. Thank you, man. Appreciate it. Glad you enjoyed the series there. Unfortunately, I already had it built. It would have been awesome if I had started from scratch with the build. You might not have liked it because it would have been me critiquing the design the whole way, and I don't want to do that to the creator of it because he did design a nice little printer. There are a few little minor issues with design it wise that I don't agree with, but functionally, it prints a benchy that you can't see because the white is blown out on this camera. But it does print a decent benchy, and it does print functional Voron parts. So, like that was off the bonsai. So ignore we smushed it way too hard to the bed part. I was too lazy to set up bed probing. But yeah. Speed of deltas are great as well. I can hit delta speed on my V2 though, that's the thing. Like CoreXY is a fast kinematic too. What about if I'm building a lot of board game inserts, box shapes with circles, high flow for that? It depends what you're pushing out in cubic millimeters per second, I think is whatever you use. There used to be a calculator that you can go, but basically a 0.4 millimeter nozzle at 0.2 millimeters layer height can do 120 millimeters a second on my Mosquito flat out and have no extrusion issues. So if you plan on printing faster than that, odds are though you're going to run into issues with quality of your print because now you're not really giving the plastic time to set up properly and you're going to have ugly looking benchies. Now if you're going to be printing at those speeds with a fatter nozzle, then I would start looking into a high flow. DIY Delta. Yeah, large nozzle and vase mode, like this guy right here was a 0.8 nozzle at 0.4 layer height at I think 60 or 80 millimeters a second, I want to believe, for the wall. Yeah. So high flow with vase mode is great. I wish I had more I ran out of transparent filament. I tried to print one of these with the last of the transparent filament I had, and I got this far up and I ran out. I thought I had more, so I used green because Christmas tree. But yeah. So. I wish I had my Groot. I did a Groot with a 0.8 millimeter nozzle too. That turned out pretty cool. Concrete printers to print a house. I never got those okay, so anytime you see, oh hey, this 3D printer prints houses. If you've ever been to a construction site, they already have boom arms that pour concrete, right? And it's some guy sitting there with a joystick. Well, all you do is put a controller on the joystick so that the boom arm now moves to a computer telling it where to use, and you use a very quick drying low slump concrete and you can print a house. Like, you could do it that way. Now I see they have gantries that do it, but concrete doesn't like to be poured in layers, by the way. Plus, have fun running electrical through that stuff. Plus, I already have a house. Were you raised in CA? I'm assuming Canada by CA. You don't seem to have any of the accent. About accent. Brad, it's because I was born and raised in South... Well, okay, I wasn't born here, but I was raised in South Detroit. That's why. Look on a map. Look what's south of Detroit. And that gives away the answer. Electronics and software are developing really nice. Wonder why no one is doing simple melt simulation to calculate the buffer properly. Because math sucks. Why would I want to do math? For me, it's literally, I crank the speeds. Is the print good? Yes, it's good. Okay, those speeds are fine. But yeah, so in my opinion, when it comes to like melt speeds of plastic, I think we are pretty much at the limits with current FDM technology in terms of like 3D printer quality and speeds. Because if you think about it, if you go back to 2018, 2017, 2016, and you looked at a good benchy, it's still a good benchy, right? There hasn't been any massive increases in quality. Now, speeds, yes, CoreXZ and whatnot. We have fast printers now. We finally got rid of 8-bit controllers. We're moving on to stuff like Clipper with Input Shaper, where you can run at 150 millimeters a second at 5,000 acceleration, and it just does it. It just handles it because it can. But the thing is, once you start pushing beyond that, you can't melt the plastic fast enough and then re-solidify it fast enough to get a good quality print, because you're either going to not melt it fast enough, because you have to take plastic from a solid that's 1.75 millimeters thick, melt it down, force it through a nozzle, and then have it set before the next layer comes around. And when you extrude plastic that fast, you start to have issues, and I've seen it in... I don't have any of the prints, but a while ago I tried printing some Voron parts at 300 millimeters a second, and what was happening is the outer walls during curves. So what it would try to do, it would come up and curve around, okay? So when it did that curve, the plastic wouldn't stick to what it was being printed on. It would get dragged across. And that's because you're trying to print so fast that the plastic literally can't adhere to the previous layer, because the previous layer is so hot, or whatever the math or the reason is, and it's just getting pulled away during direction changes. So there is a point to where you can't print fast enough. That's why whenever you see like videos, you go on Google or YouTube or whatever, and you just go super fast printing, and it's that video of the Hevork doing 600 or 800, or some other Delta doing an insane speed, or some other CoreXZ, or some printer on ball screws doing 1,000 millimeters a second. It's always a square or a circle or some really simple shape with no detail to it, because once you try to do certain shapes or anything with detail super fast, quality goes out the window. And the thing is, you're really not saving that much time beyond a certain speed. In my opinion, speed and quality are running into a law of diminishing returns. Exactly. Like, you literally, if you increase your speed from a 1 hour benchy looks really good. A 50-minute benchy looks really good. A 40-minute benchy looks pretty good. A 30-minute benchy starts looking like crap. A 12-minute benchy looks like garbage. So eventually you get diminishing returns. It only goes to a certain point. SLS printers, yeah, that's still a ways off for cheap SLS at home. Plus, fine powder is usually not a good idea. I run 0.8, 1 millimeter nozzle on high flow, high speeds. It did take some tuning before I was happy with the decision. Came in handy for building face shields and masks. Appreciate the live stream. Thank you, man. Exactly. Like, if you're printing a structural item, right? A bracket, a handle, a face shield, something that it just needs to function, go for the big fat nozzle fast, right? You got to remember, with FDM, you're laying layer lines, right? Think of it like grain with a tree, right? So prints are always going to be stronger along the layer than across the layer, okay? And then also, plastic is also strongest among its pore, right? So the single strand coming out of the filament. So it'll connect to the next layer pretty good, and it'll connect to the layer above and below okay, but that single strand is the strongest part of the print, okay? So if you can print your parts with a big thick layer, right, a 0.8 millimeter to 1 millimeter nozzle, nice and thick, 0.5 millimeter layer height, whatever, you're going to get the most strength out of it because it's one continuous pour of plastic, right? That's why whenever I see like carbon fiber fill plastic, it's only stronger in the direction of the layer lines, right? So if the layer lines are like this and you try to bend it, yeah, it's going to be stronger. But if you build up a stack like this and it's layers like this, it's going to snap because carbon fiber doesn't stick to carbon fiber. So when you fill plastic with carbon fiber, the amount of adhesion between the two layers is now dropped because there's less sticking to less. Plus, the carbon fiber strands have to be so small they can fit through your 0.4 millimeter nozzle. Carbon fiber works when it's a strand, not itty bitty little pieces of it. So, I love the idea of printing metal. Purchase a used Kuka arm and strap a MIG welder to the end of that thing. I watched a video where it's like, oh, they were printing the world's largest, like they were printing rocket components or something, rocket engines or rocket fuel tanks or something. And all it was a industrial robot arm with a MIG welder strapped to the end of it, and it was on a pedestal that spun. So the printed object was just spinning while this robot arm literally just MIG'd a big dome. Carbon fiber has to be heat treated. Okay, so but when you heat treat it, does the part start warping? Because I know that's always an issue with printing, and people always bring it up. Oh, can I print my Voron out of PLA? And we're like, no, PLA is garbage for using anything structural in any environment subjected to heat. Oh, I can anneal it though. Well, annealing won't get you the heat resistance you need. And once you anneal a part, usually your dimension accuracy goes to garbage. Part starts warping, shrinking, it goes to garbage. So with the carbon fiber, yes, when you anneal it and heat treat it, it gets stronger, but how's your dimensional tolerances? Because right now all the Voron parts, for example, are designed with FDM in mind for ABS. So all the parts are designed for ABS shrink in mind. Everything is designed to be printed with ABS. And we have seen people print parts out of other plastics where stuff doesn't fit together anymore, or bearings that used to fit into a pocket with a push fit now literally just fall through. So, yeah. Okay, so if it works, it works. Like, I have nothing against using, exotic filaments. I don't recommend using polycarbonate, though, because if you get grease or the oils in the polycarbonate, it can cause structural failure of the plastic. We've seen that happen a few times where people have printed parts in polycarbonate, especially like the motor component or the old, even the current motor, like the Z motor blocks with all the bearings in there. If the bearings start leaking grease and oil and whatnot, or the XY joints where the bearings start leaking grease and oil after a few hundred hours, that stuff starts leaking into the plastic and it can actually cause part failure because polycarbonate does not like getting exposed to oils and greases. Print solely in nylon. Ooh, there you go. I've only printed one thing of nylon. I had a sample pack of, I think, Matter Hackers or MakerBot or one M something that Buddy gave me, and I had enough filament to print one object, realized my settings were way out to lunch, correct a few things, print it again, still looked like garbage, and then I ran out. So, but yeah, nylon is not an end-all material. Like it can be really flexible if you like print it a certain way. It's good for what it needs to be, but I wouldn't use it for like printer components, especially like joints and whatnot. Like personally, I would think like PCABS would be like my go-to plastic if I could get it and actually try it and make sure it doesn't fall apart. I watched the video on CNC Kitchen where he was printing weed whacker line, and I went into my garage and I dug out some old weed whacker line, but unfortunately this stuff is 2 millimeter. Otherwise I was going to try it. See, here's the problem, Michael, when you suggest me to try plastic. I live in Canada and we can't get shit up here. And when we do, it's extremely overpriced. But you print 5 pounds of nylon a week. What are you printing? If the use case supports nylon, yeah, I got nothing against it. And I'm assuming you're printing CF nylon. Lost PLA cast all my 2 point. I hope you did it out of melted aluminum cans there, Ryan. Yes, Aaron. So I got into 3D printing about 3 years ago. So I can't say back in the old days because I wasn't around in the old days. But back in the old days, that was like one of the first things used for FDM because it already came in filament form. You could just buy weed whacker line and it's nylon and it's already in a string form. You can use it because the first extruders literally look like MIG gun feeders. And if you look, if you ever like worked with a MIG gun, if you look inside how it feeds the wire, it's literally an extruder. It's a slightly hobbed gear or dual hardened gears or one hardened gear and an idler. It looks like an extruder because that's what it is. And that's what like the first 3D printers were basically MIG guns with weed whacker line in it. Engineering parts. Okay, so yeah, if you have a use case, yeah, perfectly. Nylon would work. So I'm assuming if you're using it for engineering parts, you've done the material math on which one's the best. So. Like I have a buddy at work. He has one of those really old i3 style printers that he built out of threaded rod, and I'm pretty sure he showed me a picture. The nozzle is literally a brass plug that he drilled a hole in, and like the bed is like garolite by itself or some other weird material. So he built one of these way back in the day. Michael Hathaway, $100. Wow, thank you, man. Filomatrix carbon fiber nylon. Thank you for the donation. Thank you very much, man. Appreciate it. Hope you're enjoying the stream. But let me look up that. Let me see if I can get that in. I want to start trying more filaments. Okay, my bread and butter is ABS. I work in the plastics industry. ABS is a standard for a reason. But I've seen PC ABS, carbon fiber, polypro, TPU, CF nylon. CF Polypro. There's so many plastics that I've used that I would love to be able to try and print. But the problem is, like, up here, let me pull up some stuff. Like, okay, I want to try, what is this? Yeah, Filomatrix. So let me pull up that stuff. Oh, that's nylon. Or PLA. I don't want PLA. Okay, I can't find it. But, like, for example, this is Canada. Heavy duty nylon fiber, 1.75 millimeters, $70 for half a kilogram. 1 kilogram, 130. Like all this fancy stuff up here is like expensive as hell, man. ABS, specialty ABS. So hey, I want to try out some PC ABS, right? I want to try PC ABS. It's a good plastic. Do we even have it here? Glass filled ABS. Oh, there you go. Okay, $65 for a spool of filament. ESD ABS, $75, right? Like, it's expensive up here. So that's why I stick to my $25 roll ESUN ABS Plus. Because you got to remember, Canadian dollar, it's, what is it? $1 Canadian is 75 cents US right now, roughly. That's why, like, I never print with, like, marble filament or, like, all the other fancy filaments, because I'm not going to drop $40 on a roll of filament for, like, just a print, right? Like, here you go. Prusament. Sold out, $44 a kilogram up here. So... make a heated chamber. Okay, so if I had to start printing higher temp stuff, okay, I've seen what some other people have done. What I would do, I would not use a V2, okay? If I was shooting for 70C, okay, and I've seen this is possible. You can get to 70C on a Voron using just a heated bed. But basically, I would use a V1. I would build a small V1. I'd probably build a 200 V1, right? 200 by 200 by 200. or maybe 250 by 250 by 200, because usually you don't need a lot of Z. Most people don't use their full Z, trust me. I would build a V1 simply for the fact that lead screws are going to be less susceptible to the heat than belts, okay? And I would basically build as small as I could, because the smaller the build volume, the easier it is to keep heated. It would be a V1, and I would insulate it. I wouldn't just put panels on the side. I would actually insulate it with proper, like, reflective, high temperature insulation that you see the people using for for the high temperature printers, essentially. And you can get one of those setups pretty hot inside just off ambient. That's what I would do, but I don't print the fancy hot stuff, so yeah, it bends like that because of the way the plastic is. You gotta remember, it's thicker on one side than the other, so it's constantly trying to warp up. This is why you want Z-Hop on, right? Because if you didn't have Z-Hop on right now, what would be happening is the nozzle would hit these spikes each time instead of coming down on it. Plus, it's PLA, right? PLA above like 50C is pretty malleable. Like, I've taken prints that I've printed that have had strings on it and taken a heat gun to it too quickly, and I've like had the part literally start falling apart on me. Pay 110 a kilogram for CF. Ooh. Oh, are you paying for that, or the people that are buying the objects you're printing paying for it? Because if you're passing the cost on to the consumer, it makes perfectly sense to pay that much. Like, now if you're just paying it for out of your own pocket just because, oof. Belt on the right, twist a bit. Ooh, I see that. What is that? The alignment not be... Oh, okay, I see why it's doing that. Yeah. It looks worse than it is because of the angle. It's just the belt is slightly rubbing on the flange of the 20-tooth gear. So it's not a bad issue. It's just when it changes direction. I'll fix that later. Yes, client pays. Okay, yeah, that makes sense, man. Oh, taking off, Aaron. Have a good one. Hope you enjoyed the stream. You can catch the rest. I keep it all up on my channel. And for those that wonder, yes, the chat does show up. You just have to give YouTube a couple hours for it to process it. Usually by the next day, the chat shows up next to the stream. So, but yeah, it kind of sucks for like sourcing some stuff here in Canada. Like, you know, some filaments isn't too bad. Let me find out. Digimakers, yeah. This is like one of the main vendors in Canada. ESA ABS Plus, $23 a spool. It's on sale. It's always on sale up here. They tend to sell out often, but it's restocked often enough. I buy by the case. It's usually not an issue. When I'm down to about 2 or 3 spools, then I'll order another case. But like certain things up here just get expensive. Clearance. Let's see what's on sale. This is the ABS I used for my orange for V0. It's slightly cheaper. The problem is it's a 0.75 kilogram spool. It's not 1 kilogram. I didn't know that, but that's the thing. Like, it's not super overpriced, a lot of things, but the problem is a lot of the time, like a BL Touch is almost $50 up here. This is why I don't buy legit V6s. Let me find it. Oh, I do own one legit V6. But, yeah, there you go. So there you go. V6 is $80 Canadian. It's on sale from $100. And when I bought mine 3 years ago, it was $100. So, the big stuff we do get up here, the problem is like stuff like, you know, KVB plastic. Keene Village Plastics. Can't get up here. Can't get it. A lot of the stuff too, like LDO from their reseller in the States, doesn't ship to Canada. We do have a store up here that carries LDO. Let's see here. This vendor, the problem is their filament. This is their filament selection, PLA and PETG. Which I understand, they're the biggest sellers for 3D printing, but where's the good stuff? And then they do carry LDO stuff, but everything is out of stock. It hasn't come in stock yet. And they actually do have the Voron frame kit. There you go. So if you want to build a Switchwire kit, there you go. That's what you need. But, yeah. So, slim pickings up here, unfortunately. Which sucks because I'm 30 minutes away from being able to buy all this stuff if I just hopped across the river, but that's another country, which I can't even go into right now because of Rona. So should I just get the LDO motors for my Switchwire? Honestly, I would. The LDO motors are great. From what everyone I've talked to that has used them, they're great motors. I use, my motors are Stepper Online, so OMC Stepper Online motors. They work fine too, so. Yes, Sparta is the official LDO vendor for Canada, but nothing has come in yet. So, yeah. Or at least nothing's been listed on their site. Because everything has been out of stock since it showed up. Does Philistruder ship to Canada? If they're the LDO seller in the States, then no. I tried buying the bed from them, the Mark 52 bed, and they wouldn't ship it to Canada. They just don't. Let me try Philistruder. So let me see here. Let's go to Philistruder. Let's buy ourselves a rail core. Add to cart. Rails, yes. LDO because we like LDO. We're gonna go with a Mosquito. Duet 2. No electronics because Clipper. No display. There we go. Okay, add to cart. Come on. Checkout. Problem loaded checkout. It knows. Oh, Canada. Let me turn that screen off and actually see if it'll... It might ship to Canada. You know what? It probably doesn't because it has the whole country list. I'm pretty sure they don't. Yeah, they don't. I'll check on my other computer later. Oh, Printed Solid doesn't. That's what it was. Printed Solid doesn't ship to Canada. Philistruder might. The problem is with shipping to Canada, it's usually because shipping heavy stuff in Canada gets expensive quick. Do you use 0.9 degree steppers? No, all my printers use 1.8. I don't have any 0.9s in any of my printers. I haven't had any quality issues or any issues that would make me want to switch over to 0.9, and I prefer the extra torque. 6 rolls of ABS on coil for 101. Ooh, that's not bad. You're gonna make me check this right now, aren't you? So what is it? Filament, veracity. Building a PLA? Where's the... Oh, ABS. Oh, there we go. There's ABS. They don't have black. Oh. I'll look at that later. You guys don't need to watch me shop. I'm streaming past my normal time anyways. What do you think about printing a V2 and Prusa ASA? Probably be fine. Apparently some people are now telling me that ASA can be brittle. It should be fine though, because mechanically or like structurally and the way it's formulated, ASA pretty much is ABS for like 95% of it. But it's just ASA is ABS formulated for UV resistance for the most part. So you should have no problems printing a V2 in ASA. Some people have said, though, I've heard that it's slightly brittle, and I've seen cracking, or I haven't seen, but other people have said it. But honestly, you're probably okay, I think. All mine are ABS, so I do have a few ASA parts in a couple printers, but it's non-structural stuff. How's this print coming along anyways? We are 20% done. 20%. So much fun. Yay. So it's printing. The overhangs aren't the greatest, but I don't think I've ever seen one of these come out with perfect overhangs. And I'm pretty sure I could get much better overhangs if I wasn't printing this quick. But ain't nobody got time for that. So just to give you an idea of bed size. This is a 250 millimeter bed plate. And it does have 250 millimeter travel, but that line of plastic right there, that would be at the very, very edge of the stock bed on a Mark 52 bed, like the bed that comes with a Mark 52. So if you wanted to get the full right to the edge 250, you would have to put a 250 millimeter plate on here. So. Is nylon like Tallman 910? I've never printed in nylon. From what I've seen with nylon, though, it is pretty flexible and pretty hygroscopic. To my knowledge, nobody's printed a nylon V2. But here's the thing. ABS works perfectly fine. So if you're trying to eke more performance or print quality out of some other material for the printed plastic parts, you're pretty much, I don't think you'll see any benefit to going to a fancier plastic than a good ABS. Got my first successful CF nylon print on the Ender 3 Pro. Nice. I do want to get my hands on some more exotic stuff just to try out and do some things. Like I do want to, you know, some of my printers run ASA fan shrouds because the eSun ABS Plus doesn't exactly have quite the heat resistance. So I know with the way the Mosquito is, and it puts out more heat to the sides. I do have some melty ducts on some of my printers, so those are running ASA ones right now. But I would love to get some like high temperature plastics to try. So I'm a noob looking for 300 millimeters cubed. I'm trying to decide between DIY, wait indefinitely for the Prusa XL release, or purchase a pre-built Sidewinder X1 or CR10. Is the Sidewinder the one that Tom Solander just reviewed that had the super shifty? Yeah, the Sidewinder X1. Go watch Tom's video on it. Tom Sandlander. Yeah, Tom just did a video on it, and honestly, I wasn't super impressed. Again, watching YouTubers watch printers. This is a mains bed, and it's like kinked to hell with the way the wire is just flapping. If I was running if I were to run a mains bed on any bed flinger, the bed would be, it would be drag chain rated cables in a drag chain. I would not have cables flapping in the wind at 120 or 240 volts, okay? That is a major safety issue, especially with mains. And also, if you go back further, the bed was already coming off, okay? And if this is a Kinovo bed, this adhesive fails at 120-ish. So the fact that it's already coming off tells me something ain't exactly right here, okay? So I don't like that. And then also, they were looking at the electronics compartment, and like, these aren't the right connectors in a lot of these. and they're just super glued in. So that screams a lot of, hey, we just bought these fans. We're not going to spend any time to put the right fittings on it. Just jam in there and put a dab of hot glue and call it a day. I would not be giving money to a company that does that. So I wouldn't be getting the X1. The CR10's old design. The V5. See, here's the thing though with the Chinese companies. Like, I got nothing against Chinese printers. The Ender 3 is my go-to for recommending, hey, buy a cheap entry-level printer. Okay. The problem is like the constant revision, and you don't know what you're going to get because they just change stuff. I don't know. I don't like 300 millimeters on a bed flapper, honestly. I would go with just, you know, if you absolutely need that, I would look for something with a moving Z bed. Francisco, $10. Thank you, man. Got a split. Thanks for the stream. Have a good night. Awesome. You have a great night. I hope you enjoyed the stream. You can catch the rest of it on my channel later. It'll be up there. Take care, man. Thanks for the donation. Okay, so you had a different, but that's the thing is like, how many revisions out there? And like, I don't know. But if they did that and they fit, you're buying a printer from a company that thought that was fine shipping out, and then they realized, oh shit, we have to fix it because we shipped an unsafe, sketchy product. Now, don't worry, we fixed it now, guys. We're sorry. I don't know. Hey, did you see the 2 Trees Sapphire Plus? I think I've brought that one up before. Yeah, I've looked at this one before. It looks like a cheap CoreXZ style printer. I don't know. I don't like I don't know. I guarantee you they did not print the moon on it, that's for sure. Unsupported rail. If that's an unsupported rail, I do not like that. Linear rails are not designed to be unsupported. They are supposed to be mounted to something. That's why they have holes in it every like inch. Okay, it is attached to something. Now, is that steel or is that acrylic? Because if it's acrylic, it ain't doing anything. These bearings right here will explode, okay? These bearings are garbage and they will explode after a while. It's got a knock-off BMG, that's fine. Linear rails for the Z. See, lead screw coupling. Don't like lead screw couplings. Ooh, magic 360 watt power supply. So it doesn't have a mains bed. Filament run out. Ooh, we got a micro switch in there. I don't know. I don't have one, so I can't really comment. I would recommend just watch a bunch of videos and look out for videos, because the problem is with a lot of these the Asia market printers, a lot of them have review videos that are straight up shilling it. Well, the video is meant to sell it, so somebody will review it super awesomely so they could use that review in their marketing page or ad page. So you have to be careful of those reviews. Look for the reviews of people shitting on it and see if you agree with why they're poo-pooing the printer. And if you think that's a valid reason, don't get the printer. So, okay, so if somebody here says they have good experience with it, then I would talk to him and see if Michael has more info on it. But like, I've never used that printer. It looks like every other, like most cheap China printers look like cheap China printers to me. If you show me an Ender 3, a CR10, a C6 or CR6, or any of those other V-wheel on V-slot extrusion bed flapper printers for like, if you show me a picture of that for 5 seconds, I won't be able to tell you which one's which. They all look the same. Sane Smart Coreception. Ooh, they're getting fancy with names. Let me take a look. Sane Smart Coreception. That's a fancy name. Okay, let's take a looky-loo here. So, we got an aluminum extrusion frame. That's fine. Hoping that top plate is metal and not acrylic. They love to use acrylic in a lot of these printers. Oh. I can't see any of these other pictures. Okay, I can't see any other printers. All 3DP. I don't like this site. It just screams ad revenue. Oh, they won't even let me watch it or block. Block element. Great. There we go. Ah, they won't let me do it. Usually you can do that. Yeah, I'm not going to turn off ad blocker to give you ad revenue. Sorry. The ELF printer. How many printers are there? I gotta remember to not have the screen up while I'm searching because I'm streaming and you never know what pops up on the internet. I have ad blocker installed now. Okay, so that's another... See, these all look relatively the same. That's the thing, because you gotta remember, usually there's like one company making these and they just sell it under a bunch of different brands or whatever. Yeah, this looks exactly like the Sapphire for the most part, I think. Yeah, so it's another... The problem is with a lot of these CoreXYs, they use really, like they use unsupported bearings. So see, you have that bearing stack there that's only supported on the one side. So you have an issue where you could have the bearing stack or the idler stack leaning if the belt tension's too tight. And usually those small bearings in the idlers, those are pin bearings, and they usually will explode after a while. I had those types of bearings on my V1.55, and they lasted maybe a couple days of print time before they just literally exploded. So, okay. Oh, I got a chat. Catching up on the chat. Friend has a Sapphire and has garbage QC. See, that's another thing with cheap Chinese printers. You don't know with QC. A lot of times, they literally just build them and throw them in a box with not a lot of testing. So, you don't know what you're in for. You might end up with one that's great. You might end up with one that's absolute garbage. But yeah, it's called the Creativity 3D. So obviously it's kind of, you know, ripping on Creality. So one driver was dead, rails completely loose, and the main board was extremely buggy. Oof, yeah. I got my first 3D printer, cheap old 8-bit Anycubic i3 Mega S. The goal is to use it to get experience and hopefully DIY a Vorner console XL in the future. Love your streams. Thanks for it. Awesome, man. Glad you enjoy them. For that 8-bit Mega, make sure you have firmware on it that has runaway protection enabled, because a lot of those cheap entry-level printers do not. I can't remember if the Mega has it or not, but take a look at that. What I would recommend, rip out the board and put an SKR in there with some TMC 2209s, flash Clipper on it with a Raspberry Pi. You're going to learn Clipper, you're going to get a better board, you're going to learn how to make configurations, and you're going to have a printer that doesn't squeal at you when it's printing. Plus, it's hardware that you can use in another printer. Just keep the stuff you take out of it, so if you ever go to sell it, you can put it back in and keep the good stuff. And usually those have a garbage extruder. Get like a Triangle Labs BMG clone extruder or something. Get a proper extruder. Belt pathing is wrong. I could see that. A lot of the times they're not CoreXY, they're H belt or something like that. They're not true CoreXY. And I can't remember what the other one is. H something, I believe. And it's very easy to have racking issues with that because of the way the belts are run. If you want real quality to CoreXY, SK... The SK Go, I've seen a lot of people talk about the SK Go. Yeah, Second, I think it's called. Yeah, they have full kits here. Let me show me pictures of your printer. No more. I would like... Okay, so this is your site. Okay. So Second. Hey, I want to buy a Second printer. Okay. Let me just go to your site. What does your printer look like? Why? Why do I want this? Okay, it's an overkill design. Highly customized, easy, but... Docs? Show me pictures of your printer. Okay, so this is how I buy it. Okay, cool. A chart. Where is your printer? Okay, there's components. Where can I see your printer that I want to buy? What am I buying? HBot. That's what it is, HBot. Would you say it's useful to do Z-Hop on non-CoreXZ? Yes, Z-Hop is great. Like when I printed my original V1 parts, it was on a Monoprice Select Mini V2, and I printed those parts in PETG, and I had Z-Hop enabled because PETG makes boogers on your nozzle, like it builds up on your nozzle really easily. So what you do is you print slow. I think I was only printing at like 30 millimeters a second, and what I did was I had Z-Hop for pretty much every travel move that wasn't laying down plastic. So it is practical and useful on lead screw driven printers. The only difference is it's much slower on lead screw driven printers. So what filament am I printing? Beryl asked that. Red. I don't know. I bought this from Amazon a while ago. It's been in a bag. I can't remember what brand it is. Probably some random China brand, but it was cheap and on sale, and I needed to like reach a certain amount to get like next day shipping. So yeah, it's red PLA. That's all I know. What did you say it's useful to do? Okay, I already answered that one. Two turbo. Yeah, don't bother with the SKR turbo. If you're running Marlin, it might make a difference. Maybe. I don't even think so. But for Clipper, put it this way. Dual ramps and Clipper can run a Voron V2 at its max speeds. Like, you can max out a V2 with dual ramps. And that's an 8-bit board from a long time ago. So the board I would recommend, SKR 1.3, 1.4. They have the new turbo. The I think it's just, I can't remember what they call it. The SKR E3 turbo. It's not a mini E3. It's just an E3 turbo, I believe it is. Or I can't, what is it called? Let me see here. They just came out with it. But the board itself is basically a bigger version of the Mini E3. Yeah, it's this guy. Yeah, it's the SKR E3 Turbo. It's relatively new, so I don't think there's a configuration for it. So if you get one, though, it basically, I like it because it have the drivers directly on the board. They're not step stick format, which is better for heat sinking. That is probably going to be a good board going forward. So, okay, yeah, so people already have them in their machines. That seems to be like, I would love to put one in here. It wouldn't make any sense to upgrade from an SKR 1.3 because it's basically the same thing, just all in one. But it seems to be a decent option going forward, and would probably make a good board. So. Okay, I think I'm going to end the stream in about 10 minutes, though, guys. It's 11:30, so I'm going to end it, or 11:34. So I'm going to end it at 11:45. What I'll probably do, I probably am going to shut the stream down, unfortunately, because I don't want this to finish after I go to bed and just have the stream running all night with nothing to watch. So what I'll probably do, I can record it. I'll start recording it. I'll just hit the button here and start recording it. And then in the morning, I'll put the time lapse of it up on my Twitter so you guys can watch it. Or at least I'll put some pictures of it. I won't put, you know what, I'm not going to record it because I haven't recorded the whole thing. So, for the next, 10 minutes, completely open floor. While I clean up, I guess. I didn't really do anything this stream. Use something else. Fortunately, I can't because my starting code does a a bed probe, and I can't really bed probe something. Although I do need to do another project because I have this guy. I still have a mini 1.1 I got to do something with. Yes, Giovanni, you would just have to create your own config because the MCU is supported. So all you would have to do is basically create a config with the pinout. So for those that don't know how Klipper configs work, pretty much with Klipper, it'll work on any MCU that is supported. And if you go to the Klipper, let me see here. Yeah, where is it? Yeah, so like these are all the boards or the MCUs or boards that are supported by Klipper right now, or some of them, right? Like there's a chart somewhere, but basically how Klipper works is for your configuration, you have this text document, okay? Oh, a CFG document, okay? And if you want to add something to it, all you do is you just add it, okay? So there's example configurations here for all kinds of different boards, but say you had a board that the MCU was supported, you knew the pinout of the board because you need to know the pinout, but there was no example configuration. You had to make one from scratch. What you would do is you would just take like an example configuration, right, for like CoreXZ or whatever, and you would just copy all the components you need. So Z motor, stepper Z, extruder, heater bed, fan, and see where it says pin? All you do is you would just enter whatever pin it says on your board you have it in. So here, okay, the MCU, that's my MCU, you know, heater fan for my nozzle fan, okay? That is the pin that activates it, that's the power. For my normal fan, which is, I'm assuming this is the hot end fan, that's just whatever pin it's plugged into, you just enter it there and then you hit save, right? So for your extruder, okay, that's the UART pin, microstepping 16. If I want to change it to 32, all I do is type 32, hit save, and hit firmware refresh or restart, and I'll be running at 32-bit microstepping, right? So if you want to add something to your configuration, right? Like I didn't have a display on here, right? So this morning, when I turned the printer on, my configuration looked like this. It's like, hey, I want to add my display to this, right? What I would do, I would just, you know, copy the display example from wherever, paste it in here, and I'd be like, okay, whatever my LCD type is, and I would just reference whatever, you know, LCD example, right? So, okay, sample LCD, right? So I would just reference whatever. So, okay, I have a rep wrap standard display. Well, okay, so it's an ST7920. Okay, I would just ST7920, whatever it is. Oh, these are the pins that it uses. Save. And then it's done. Like, it's just a text document. You just edit it, add whatever you need to add to it, and then you hit restart. And if you get an error, it goes through during boot up and goes, hey, you have the wrong value here, or hey, I'm missing this, or hey, you need to do this, and it'll say it right there and be like, hey, this is why I'm not working, and then you go dig through some more examples or whatever, and you fix what you got to fix until it works. So it's nice to have one, you know, completely built up for you, right? Like if you build a Voron with one of the controller boards that we recommend, you can literally just copy and paste the config into it. You'll have to change some stuff for your Z offset and whatnot, and your XY bounds and whatnot, but the printer will work right out of the box. Versus, you know, like my little mini i3 there, we had to go through and set some stuff up to get it, you know, working right. So. Yeah, there is a lot of work being done. A wizard would be nice. I know like RepRap firmware has a wizard. So imagine you install Mainsail or Fluid or whatever in the future, and you'd be like, hey, I have a brand new printer. It has this board, I have these hooked up on it, and it spits out a configuration for you automatically, and then you just tweak the variables. So Clipper is ever evolving, right? It's a fast developing firmware. Remember, like 2 years ago, it was nowhere near what it is now. Like fluid and mainsail here, these didn't exist at the beginning of the summer, pretty much. So. Yes, I am close to ending the stream. It's 11:40 here, so I'm going to be ending it in like 5 minutes. I'm just leaving it open for now. I'll post a picture of this in the morning. So if you want to see a picture of this, my Twitter at 3dpnero. Follow me there. I'll post a picture of this too in the Voron Discord. If you're not a member of the Voron Discord, you're interested in Vorons, join the Voron Discord. Go to vorondesign.com, community. There's a link to the Discord there. There's a section there with all kinds of pictures that people have posted from Voron. If you like what you see, subscribe. I'm assuming most of you have subscribed probably. If you're following my stream. If you are not subscribed, the button is there, I think. Hopefully that's also the like button too. The like button's over here somewhere too. Click the like button. How is going back to work? It's work. Yep, good to be back though. Just can't do as much YouTube stuff. That's the only downside. I can't stream as much. I can only do one stream a week now. I'm going to try and do more videos though to kind of make up for it. What other social media? What other things do people say when they're ending streams? I don't know. I don't have an OnlyFans, so I can't hawk that. Enjoy shaky cam. Went back to school now. See, honestly, I was in school for 3 different things, and now I just work in a skilled trade, so that kind of works out that way. It is what it is. The guys my kids watch yell and scream. Yes, what is it? What's the I don't know. I don't like, my son just watches Little Baby Bum, and now he's into Octonauts. So I don't know, what is it? Okay, this is what the printer review. That's what that PewDiePie guy does, right? Hot end review coming up. I don't know. Can you see out the window in front of me? Yes. There you go. I went crazy and I actually put up, I have acoustic foam. I have no idea if the acoustic foam did anything for the stream tonight. But I have acoustic foam up. I don't know, it was cheap, it was on Amazon. I don't know if it does anything, but it makes it look somewhat more professional down here. Maybe. But anyways, I'm going to call it now. Thank you again, all those who joined me for the stream tonight. This was a overview and demonstration and question and answer about the Voron Switchwire CoreXZ printer. It pushes plastic out, it makes things. All printers do that, some are better than others at doing it though. This one's pretty good at it. I hope you enjoyed yourselves. I hope you learned something. I've learned something. We all learned something with these streams. What else? Okay, thank the people. Hawk my merchandise. Okay, I don't have merchandise. Follow me at 3dpnero. I have a Twitter. Make sure you liked and subscribe to this channel. Ring that bell, because that's what people say. Wash your hands and wear a mask. I don't have an OnlyFans yet, so I can't hawk that. Shop LTT store for a water bottle. And thank you all for those that donated. Honestly, anyone who donates to the stream, I do greatly appreciate it. It helps the stream. It helps fund projects. There are some things I'm kind of looking into hopefully upping the quality a bit, but those will come when they come, mostly because sales up here suck and our used market is garbage. Believe me, I've been looking for an A5100 for a while. Apparently in the US you can get those for $100. Up here they're 500. I don't know. But anyways, hope you all have a great night. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Take care out there, and peace. Don't forget to drink your